Excellent. Welcome, everybody, to the Carlisle Select Board meeting on Tuesday, June 28th. This evening, we are beginning with an executive session at 6:30, and then we will return at 7 o'clock for our regular meeting. May I have a motion to enter executive session, please?
So I move that the board enter into executive session pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Paragraph 2, to conduct strategy session in preparation for contract negotiations with non-union employee, as an open meeting may have detrimental effect on the town's negotiating position. And I also move that the board enter to executive session pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Paragraph 6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property, Assessors Map 6, Parcel 5-7-0, and Map 5, Parcel 4-3-8, as an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the town's negotiating position, and that afterward, the board will return to open session.
We have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, we can do this by a voice vote. Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent. All right, we'll move to executive session. Good evening. I'm sorry for the delay. We were in executive session, but we will begin our regular select board meeting now. Just briefly, I want to review the agenda for this evening. We have community input followed by discussion with the ARPA committee about some grants that are coming up. We have a decision to make about continuing COVID testing. We have an appointment for a full-time police officer. Lori Eckler's here from the Youth Commission. Then we'll do annual appointments and liaison assignments, followed by a discussion about the fiscal year 22 select board goals, a review of those and evaluation. And then the town administrator's report, followed by liaison reports, if we have them, appointments and resignations. And then finally, we'll review the warrants and approve some cemetery deeds. So we have a full agenda, as always. Anyway, is there anyone online that would like to offer community input? If so, if you could either show your face and raise your hand or use the chat function to raise your hand, be happy to recognize you. All right, well, seeing none, and there are no additional members here in the audience unless, did somebody want to do community input? No. Oh, you're just ready to go for the next item. Okay, great. I know, we're trying to get back on time. So anyway, welcome Scott Triola from the ARPA committee. And then we also have Kate Reed, who serves for the select board on the ARPA committee. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you very much. And is this coming through okay? I know there's been issues with some audio. First, let me hand out an updated table. You had received this in the packet, although the ARPA recommendations and some dollar amounts were not included. So I'll give you that and pass it around. What I wanted to do tonight is very quickly just give a quick update since we last met on the ARPA grant and ARPA projects that were approved, and then quickly move into some additional recommendations the committee has for requests that we received subsequent to when we last met. So in the packet, I had provided a summary of the ARPA projects that had been previously approved. Those totaled $329,247. I won't go through each one other than to say, I think with the exception of some of the infrastructure projects, they're all underway. One notable thing is the Gleason Library rooftop unit. I spoke with TMS, who I'll talk about a little bit more. They're currently evaluating if we can in fact use ARPA funds for that. I think when we approved that, we said we weren't sure the procurement process, which already happened, if it would meet the federal procurement requirements. Andy is a little more optimistic and we may be able to use ARPA funds for that, but that evaluation is ongoing because, as you can imagine, the confluence of federal and state procurement guidelines and the evolving nature of the ARPA final rule, which apparently isn't totally final, leaves a lot of gray areas. So TBD on that one. The other thing I wanted to note was that the ARPA committee did enter into an hourly agreement with TMS to provide procurement support using the contingency and admin funds. So they have gone back and reviewed all the projects previously approved. They will be reviewing every new project approval to make sure that the procurement process either has or will comply with the federal procurement guidelines. And that's, I think from our committee standpoint, that's the key admin / oversight function that we need with regard to ARPA. I think the other admin funds are minimal, but with procurement, it's a very complicated process. And currently in town, we don't have federal procurement expertise or a lot of federal or procurement support in general. So I think we're very happy to have them on board. Yeah, they're a paid consultant. Yeah. And they're on an hourly on-demand basis. So as we need a review, they'll do a review. Other than that, like I said, these projects are underway. I won't go through each and every one. If you have specific questions about any of them, I'd be happy to provide whatever update I have. But I did want to move on to the new ARPA funding requests. As I said, since we last met, we had around 7 or 8 new requests. And we've met as a committee 5 times since town meeting. And the focus of those meetings has been both bringing TMS into the fold and also deliberating these requests. So tonight I want to review those. The first being the town meeting electronic voting system. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this. This was submitted on behalf of the town moderator and the town clerk. And this project will acquire software, hardware, and necessary equipment that will streamline the vote counting process at town meeting. It was designed and used by the House of Representatives, and it's used for town meetings in over 40 Massachusetts communities. Basically, each registered voter attending a Carlisle town meeting will get a small, essentially clicker with yes, no, and I think there's 3 buttons, very simple. And they'll use that to register their vote when the moderator calls for a vote count. Not necessarily every vote, but in sensitive topics or topics that are close, we would use this electronic voting system. The key advantage of this system are, one, it significantly speeds up the vote counting process. Wayne estimates that can save up to 15 to 20 minutes per hand vote. And by his count, we have 2 to 3 of those per town meeting. So it could save significant time. It improves the accuracy and reliability of votes. And it also allows voting anonymity for sensitive issues. So, this is an important thing to think about. There are a lot of votes where people are hesitant to voice their position because we do have to raise a hand, raise a card. And in other towns, they've seen some of the voting dynamics shift a little bit, and it gives a little more insight into the population.
Well, one might argue the spirit of town meeting is open. But that's okay. I take the.
Go ahead.
How many clickers is this?
500.
500.
So,
He said optimistically.
well, no, they did it based on kind of a maximum they've seen, and we're, having the ability to have extra clickers. They should last, multiple years on a charge. We've had discussions about maintaining them, and it seems all very feasible.
Seems reasonable to me. Get more than you need.
I was going to say they also looked into the difference between 300 and then renting 200 if there was going to be a big thing, and that it turned out to be cheaper to buy the extra 200.
One of the things our committee asked about is how would this relate to the pandemic? Obviously, speeding up town meeting is a good thing. It also facilitates outdoor meetings, which currently is, as Wayne said, it requires a securing of the perimeter to ensure that only registered voters are actually voting. And so with the system, which will work outdoors, it will make it easier to ensure that the votes being cast are by registered voters, because you have to prove your residency before getting a clicker. And it also does allow more flexible use of space and multi-room setups should we need in the future to have additional spacing or create additional areas for people at higher risk. This uses a radio technology, so you can set up classrooms. You can have people vote easily from the cafeteria or other locations. Yeah, from their cars as they drive by. So in our, so our committee, reviewed this. We had a formal vote. 2 committee members, myself and Kate, were there. Both of us voted in favor of this. John, who was not able to attend the meeting, wasn't able to vote. I did ask for his position subsequent to it in an email. He did not support using ARPA funds for this. His perspective was that he wasn't opposed to the voting system per se. He felt that in terms of the urgency or priority of this system, didn't necessarily demand ARPA funds at this time, and his preference would be to see other funding sources used for this. John, he's the 3rd committee member.
So you guys are for it.
Yeah, we had 2 committee. The formal vote was 2-0. We had 1 committee member who wasn't there, who I asked for his position, and
Would have been,
It should be town funds.
town funds. Yeah,
Pay for it.
I'm sorry, John,
Coughlin, who's the
our 3rd committee member. Yeah. So,
which John? Oh.
yeah, I mean, I think basically he would just see a different funding source than ARPA for this. So that's the first recommendation. The second recommendation is for the Wilkins HVAC project. This is submitted by the Carlisle Public School and Carlisle School Committee. This is a revised request, which would fund a multi-head split system being installed in the Wilkins building, which I think, as most of us know, has poor ventilation and little to no air conditioning. While there are HVAC needs in other areas of the school, Wilkins is the clear top HVAC priority. This system is less invasive with regards to the ductwork and roof membrane penetration, which is why this amount and this quote is much less than what had previously been discussed, which was closer to $700,000. That was more of a full duct installation system. There'd be, ceiling cartridges, and then those window mounted or the wall mounted air handlers and condensers would be used to cool the classrooms. In addition to improving the HVAC in Wilkins, the system would also positively impact the air quality in both Spalding and Grants buildings, which are adjacent. And then this amount that's being requested is based on a comprehensive quote from Denron Hall Plumbing and HVAC. If ARPA funds were to be approved by the select board, we will need to get updated quotes from 2 vendors to comply with federal procurement guidelines. This is an ongoing discussion. I think they're meeting tomorrow about this. So, of course, the amount is subject to change when you put it out for quote, but that's what this request is. And the committee, the vote was 2-0 in support, and John voiced his support via email for this project. The third item is it doesn't map with one of the submissions, but I'll talk about that. It's the Carlisle Cultural Council grant. So in this recommendation, we're recommending a one-time non-recurring $50,000 grant to be provided to the Carlisle Cultural Council to assist Carlisle's cultural organizations in the recovery from the financial impacts of the pandemic. The committee supports this grant with the understanding that this amount is for the entire ARPA eligible period beginning March 3rd, 2021 and ending December 31st, 2024. So our intent is to make this a one-time grant. And to date, we've received multiple ARPA requests from non-governmental cultural entities like the Carlisle Chamber Orchestra, Old Home Day, and even the Carlisle Mosquito, and we expect to receive more. We believe these types of requests are best evaluated and prioritized by the Cultural Council, and any funds we pass to these organizations would likely need to go through the Carlisle Cultural Council as grants and would need to be administered as such. And so, given that their purpose is to cultivate and advocate for the cultural community in Carlisle, we met with them, and they've agreed to create, define, and manage the funding process and ongoing administrative tasks to both administer and monitor these funds to ensure they're in compliance. As you know, community and character are 2 of the 5 core Carlisle values that were identified in the master plan. And we believe the amount of $50,000 is a reasonable amount to support organizations in this area. This amount plus the previous $15,000 total, which was approved for Old Home Day and the Cultural Council, would total $65,000 in support to Carlisle's cultural institutions. This represents just over 4% of our total ARPA funds. And again, we recommend this single grant to cover the entire ARPA term, as we recognize the financial needs may be front loaded and prefer to let the cultural council prioritize both when and where the funds are distributed. We talked about maybe we do a certain amount now and a certain amount next year, but in the end, we thought it was much simpler to just say, here's your funds for the term. You manage it, you work with the cultural institutions. And
Above the 15.
that's above the 15.
Yeah, but the 4% includes the 15.
But I mean, you give them like a block grant.
Right.
Block grant.
So what again is the term?
So the money would be for them to use during the ARPA eligible period. So the organizations could submit for expenses beginning March 2021, March 3rd, and then up until and ending December 31st, 2024. So these would be in our view, the entirety of funds we would provide to the Cultural Council.
Another 2.5 years.
And just based on the requests that have come in to date, and I think once they put out a grant process and they've drafted what that process will be, and it's going to be actually a fairly comprehensive process involving like their financials. I'm sure there'll be additional requests forthcoming from different institutions.
To the cultural council.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And any request we get in to us that fits within this purview, we would redirect to the Cultural Council
Mhm.
because we just don't have the perspective or expertise to evaluate and prioritize those.
In
But-
fact, it's two that came into us that we said. "Wait,
Yeah. Yeah.
Send it to the cultural council.
Moving along, there was a request made for high-speed internet access to 50 Acre Way. The ARPA committee does not support the use of funds to bring high-speed internet access from South Street to the residents of 50 Acre Way. Currently, the residents only have access to DSL, which has proven unreliable and insufficient for the current remote working and remote education demands that are being placed on folks with COVID. The amount of the request was $99,901, which is the customer contribution amount quoted by Comcast to install the high-speed line. The total project cost is $110,201, with Comcast generously covering the first $10,300 of the install. And we're very sympathetic to the residents' lack of high-speed internet access, but we don't support the use of ARPA funds for this project, given both the high expense and limited number of households served. And it's also not clear if this project is eligible as a government service under the ARPA requirements. In its deliberations, the committee did express potential interest in supporting a townwide initiative to close remaining gaps in high-speed internet access in coordination with Comcast or other broadband provider. So again, there's certainly need there. I'm sure there's needs in other parts of towns, but this amount of money for this purpose didn't seem appropriate. And then the last one, which may tie into your next agenda item, was the request for an estimate of up to $250,000 for continued town resident and worker COVID testing submitted by the Carlisle Fire Department and local emergency planning committee. We do not support, and I should say, aside from the electronic voting system, all the other votes were 2-0 supporting the position being expressed there, and John supported the position expressed here on the other ones.
I thought you were going to say you tested the electronic voting system. for 2 of you.
Boop, beep. I would like to. The last one is the COVID testing, and we don't support to recommend local ARPA funding for this continued PCR testing at the estimated amount of $250,000. Our position is primarily driven by the elimination of PCR testing requirements and the increased reliance, availability, and affordability of rapid tests. In addition, many financial variables remain unknown, as the chief pointed out in his submission form. Federal funding may be extended. I don't know where that landed or if anything's happened there. And there was also discussion of potentially charging individuals a convenience fee to offset the cost to the town. The tests are around $45. So there's a potential to charge people for these tests that obviously would affect the amount of funding required. We believe pursuing a strategy to cover the cost of PCR testing using a combination of federal funds and convenient fees would be preferred if we wanted to continue that. And we did have a discussion about using ARPA funds to support and making tests available to individuals who are unable to afford or obtain a test. But this would be a much narrower target than the current testing provides. And my understanding is there's an ample supply of rapid tests, both through the Board of Health and to individuals. So that's a summary of our recommendations that are reflected in the handout. As you know, the select board has final approval of ARPA funds. So, we would welcome you taking a vote on these in support or having deliberations on these. There are two other areas I do want to just mention, maybe after we address these, that are areas of interest to the committee that we'd like to get your initial thoughts on.
So I was just going to suggest maybe we can with unless someone on the board wants to discuss further the Wilkins HVAC and the Carlisle Cultural Council grant, we could. Did you want to discuss one of those?
I'm so sorry. Can I ask
Yeah,
a
that's okay.
question?
Please, yeah.
All right,
Sure.
because I'm new to this and I
Yep.
just want to understand fully. So I looked at this in ARPA and thanks for all your work
Yep.
on this because we've obviously thought about it extensively and that's great. You and Kate. But no, really. But I don't understand is so ARPA and then how that ties into you'd sent us information on the SLFRF.
State
program.
and local fiscal
Okay,
recovery
so
funds.
Is that kind of like?
It is
flows
ARPA.
through- It is ARPA. Okay.
That's ARPA is the common vernacular to refer to the state and local fiscal recovery funds.
All right.
It is one and the same.
Because their key principle is recipients and subrecipients are the first line of defense and responsible for ensuring that the SLRFP, whatever, award funds are not used for ineligible purposes, thereafter no fraud, stuff like
Right.
that. So then you go to the statutory eligibility uses and it's all about COVID-19 and everything. So all these things have been kind of vetted through that. Is that?
Well, so the difference is, and this is Carlisle in the previous meeting elected to designate the entirety of our amount as revenue loss. So in addition to the eligibility criteria, the government also said to towns and localities that up to $10 million, you can designate ARPA funds as revenue loss. And when you do that, the eligibility requirements go away essentially, and you can use those ARPA funds for any quote unquote government service. So these projects need not line up with the ARPA eligible products because we are not funding projects under that mechanism. We have designated it all as revenue loss, which means we can use it for any quote unquote government service. And so the processes that we've put in place in terms of our evaluation, working with the town accountant, working with TMS to ensure that and all of these things do qualify as a government service and that both the definition, the approval, the invoicing, the payment are all appropriate and comply with both ARPA and audit guidelines.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's very confusing.
You've done a great job
So I had a
sorting
quick
through it all.
question, if I may.
Yeah.
This is a great job. And one request that I have is, could you add to this kind of where we are with the funds?
Yes.
So that we know that when we're agreeing to something, we know kind of where that puts us.
So,
And so where are we now?
So where are we now? So we were awarded a total of $1.57 million is our expected total ARPA funding. We've received half of that. We received an email today that we just completed the paperwork to start receiving the second half of that imminently. So we should receive another $275,000 in the next few weeks, and we should receive the balance in the next few months. So we have half the money. We should have the entirety of the money by end of September.
And we've spent nothing so far.
We've spent, well, we've approved 329,000 and we've spent actual invoiced and spent about 19,000 of that 329,000.
329, okay.
And and I have these numbers, I didn't have time to put them in the packet, but if you approve the recommended projects, that would total an additional $255,508, which would bring the total approved funds to $584,755. which leaves $985,245 left, which is about 63% of the total.
Okay, thank you very much.
And what I would add to that is that there are certainly unknowns and risks related to the pandemic and unexpected costs. And we definitely want to keep a lot of, I think the committee is being very judicious in how we recommend these projects and making sure we're not, as a lot of localities are, spending it all up front, and we keep a lot of dry powder, so to speak, for the next 2 fiscal years.
So are we, perhaps it might make sense to have a motion on the floor then to accept the 3 that are recommended, and then we can come back and discuss any one of those once we have a motion on the floor. Does that make sense?
Could I also request in the motion that you just make approval contingent on compliance with the federal procurement guidelines? Thank you.
Okay, I move that we approve the recommended project, ARPA projects as presented tonight, contingent upon there being
Compliance with
compliant with
federal procurement.
federal procurement guidelines.
Second.
So any discussion about any of these 3?
Did I,
Well-
did I say that right? It's the ones that you're proposing, not all the ones on the paper.
The town meeting electronic voting system, the Wilkins HVAC project, and the Carlisle Cultural Council grant.
Yes.
All
I want to
right,
make sure we weren't all of a sudden approving them all.
right. All right, well, hearing no discussion, we can do this as a voice vote. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the 3 projects have been approved unanimously.
Thank you very much. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
And
Thank
thank
you.
you, really. Yes, I know you have a few
Oh,
other things you want to raise,
sorry.
right?
I was hoping it's very quickly. 2 more areas of interest that we want to come back to you and discuss potentially next month. One is, and Kate's kind of been championing the idea of using ARPA funds to fund a grant consultant for the next 2 years. When we talk to these groups, our first question is always, are there other funding sources and other grants available before we use ARPA funds? And in most cases, they don't have the resources to do comprehensive grant outreach. And so the thinking is, if we use some ARPA funds to fund a grant consultant, we could get a multiple X return on that investment. And typically, I think we're trying to find where this lived in the transition with town administrator and all this. Kate has done some initial research on what that might cost. And if it's an area of interest for the select board as well, what we would do is push the ball further in the next month to put some more specifics around it and then come back with an actual proposal to you.
But it's on the order of.
I'll yield the floor.
Okay, for 2 years for a part-time, half-time.
A half-time person who would be available to help any local group that might be considering a project, but looking for funds, help them find other grant funds.
Right.
Does that include the town itself?
Yes.
That's what I'm wondering. Okay.
And they could also look for a grant to pay for themselves.
Yes.
They could. I
Right.
mean, a rule of thumb is that grant writers bring in 4 times their salary.
And I'm very conscientious of these grant funded positions becoming permanent positions. And this is an example of that in the past. So again, I think we would have a very specific term on this. And we'd want to really see what the fruits of the labor are.
Right.
And this requirement may change based on the incoming town administrator and assistant town administrator.
Right.
But there's a gap there. If that's an area of interest, we will do more due diligence on this through our committee in the next month, but we didn't want to move too far without some feedback from the select board. The second area is where we would express support is in funding some town hall technology upgrades, specifically, using some ARPA funds to upgrade the teleconference and remote meeting equipment in the other conference rooms. I know PEG money is being used to make some changes in here, but I don't see remote meetings going away anytime soon, and we would support use of that. I think the challenge is just getting the request and that list of the recommended equipment in so that we could actually make the purchase and install it. And currently there's not a home for that. So I volunteered to spend some additional time working on that with whomever and potentially the school to identify some basic equipment that we could get into the conference rooms. And that would maybe be on the order of 10K, maybe. I don't think it would be,
Two are healed and the other little one, or what?
yeah, upstairs,
Yeah.
two conference rooms maybe. And I don't know, there might be other little quick,
Louds and, laptops to go with them.
it's not a lot of money, but right now there's just no, and if there is a resource that has an idea of what that should be, we would love to see that request. It just hasn't been brought to us. Yeah, great.
The one we're getting here, I mean, one of the things we have at work now, because everybody, obviously, they're all upgrading their technology, is smarter about, and I'm looking at that picture right now, homing in on the speaker.
Yeah.
Is that what
Yeah.
this one will do? Okay. good.
Yeah, so
And
we've
that's-
gone through Minuteman to
Yeah.
Well,
with the whole list from them for this
because
room.
they're
Right.
streaming, but these other
Right.
meetings,
Yeah,
I don't think necessarily
Right.
will be.
And as a committee member, I'd like to get to a point where, like, even on FinCom, we can get back to like hybrid meetings. And right now it's
Right.
me lugging my laptop in and the webcam. And even like more Zoom licenses for committee members so that they can host Zooms, things like that. I mean, it's low hanging fruit. It's not expensive, but some work is required. And we just want to know that our committee would support funding in this area, and we just need to push it forward. So if you're willing to work on it, I'll just follow up with you after this meeting. But does this committee have a feeling on those two
Comfortable
areas?
with the pursuit of these two, because
Yeah,
I certainly
always
am.
good with this.
You're right.
are you comfortable with the pursuit of?
Yeah, we're not looking for any formal approvals, but we don't want to waste.
Go ahead to
Yeah,
explore it.
We don't,
Yeah.
yeah, we don't want to do the
Right.
heavy lifting and come back and say, oh,
Yeah.
we're not interested in funding
Right.
this.
Great.
All right. So I think we're good on that too.
We are
Thank
good.
Scott
Thank
and
you.
Kate. Yeah.
Thank you, Kate. I'm just trying to get out of here, right?
Right.
Get the approvals and run.
Yeah, I don't know, I wanna stay here for the next.
Yeah, I'll stay.
All
for
right.
this.
Thanks so much. So next on our agenda is the COVID testing. And so let me just point your attention to the packet where we included a memo from the Board of Health that they sent out on June 22nd. And as you know, we've had Chief Soros here before to talk about this. And currently, the money that the federal government has allocated ends on June 30th, which is Thursday. However, I spoke to Kelly actually just yesterday, and she said we don't have any answer yet on whether the federal government is going to continue to provide some kind of reimbursement. But what she has been told is if they do continue, it would be a percentage, not 100%. And she had mentioned that her regional contact had said potentially 90% of the cost. And she expected to hear back in 2 weeks. And again, as we know, that may or may not, we may or may not get a definitive answer, but that's what we know at the moment about federal funds being available. So have you all read the recommendation from the Board of Health? Because they are not recommending that we continue doing any kind of PCR testing. And they make the case about home tests being very available, and that there are kits here, in fact, that one can receive from the Board of Health, and also through other municipal departments. So I won't go back over all of this. We all, I think, are paying enough attention to what's going on publicly that we have a sense of where things are in terms of the severity of when one does test positive for COVID, that the potential of ending up in the hospital with a severe case has definitely dropped. But we continue to see people testing positive with milder symptoms. So that's the Board of Health's position. I chatted with Brian, or we had some email back and forth about the possibility of having the testing still available here in Carlisle through the fire department, but charging those that wish to be tested the cost of the test. And he and Kelly have talked about how that would work in terms of the finances here in town. And they have a plan for how that could work, which would mean taking checks or cash from people and then turning them in with any other receipts that were coming from the fire department. That money would go into the general fund. But the cost of the kits would be in the fire department budget. Am I right about that, Brian? Am I saying that properly?
Come on up, Brian.
Yeah, you want to come up? Yeah, thanks, and have a seat. Yeah.
My understanding is that could happen either way, that we could fund it out of the general fund or out of the fire department, and then the FinCom could move money, as we periodically can, to say, well, you spent this much on this thing, and we told you you could, so we're gonna fund it.
If you need additional funds within your budget.
Right.
Yeah, okay. So that is an option that we could consider, and we could consider that for a short period of time. Or we could decide to end the testing that we're offering after June 30th. Or we could decide the town is prepared to spend the money on its own, or spend our own money, the town's budget, on continuing to offer the service. But, as Scott mentioned, we wanted to figure out a way to reduce those who were eligible, and that might be challenging to do, but we could take that as an approach. So the floor is open for
So how would that work? So if I wanted to get a test and I went there and it was, say, $45, I could give you a check or cash. If I didn't have the funds to be able to do it, could you give me a free test?
An antigen test?
Yeah.
Yes. So I
don't leave, I could still get a test.
Right.
yes.
And what do you think?
I think a lot of the momentum that we had for a long time is dissipating. Right now, if you have symptoms, it's a very expensive option to the society, but you can get a PCR test pretty easily without symptoms. Like if you want to do it for travel, it's harder. If you want to do it to go to summer camp, it's harder. I mean, you can go to Minute Clinic and you see a doctor, and you make an appointment, you see a doctor, and you can get a test if you have symptoms. So that's kind of the hard part of making a criteria, is you're actually excluding the people for whom it's actually still their best option. But like I say, I think the momentum is gone. We've kind of announced that we're going to stop giving free tests, and I don't know if you follow City in the Woods, but you had one strong plea. I think there's an extent to which people are so grateful that we did it for so long, they don't want to complain, about it ending. But I also think there just isn't the strong need that there was.
You're okay with this?
I'm okay with it, right? With us ending it. It's the reason I got a handful of tests, so that exactly what you say, if somebody shows up, I can at least hand them something. And
Scott had it.
Yeah, Scott, come on up to the mic. Yeah.
Just want to chime in from a FinCom perspective. I mean, we can't just move funds between accounts. So if just tactically, if it's being paid out of the fire department fund, we would have to either consider it an unexpected or unanticipated expense and do a reserve fund transfer. And I don't know if meets that standard. I don't know. The other option would be you'd have to use town meeting to do account transfers. But really the FinCom, the only discretion we have without a town approval would be a reserve fund transfer.
You can't set up a revolving fund account.
Mhm.
You-
not without a town
and
meeting.
So we have one and we started to do that for using the ambulance fund and we realized that's not smart.
So
So-
Scott, let me just ask a clarifying question then, because when I talked to Kelly,
Seems to think it's possible.
she said that the cost of the cost for the fire department, and if we chose to absorb the cost of the actual test, would come out of the operating budget of the fire department.
Yes.
And that then, and whatever revenue came in would go into the general fund.
Right.
So that what then would happen is if at some point in the fiscal year, the fire department had used up their operating budget, that they would come to FinCom and select board for, I'm not,
But you'd have to do
And
that at town meeting.
so FinCom cannot.
The only,
Select board can't.
we can't change, once the budget is approved, the only funds we can move is a reserve fund transfer. Yeah. But you'd basically run in deficit or
Okay.
until we got to
town
town. Now,
meeting.
town meeting, you still have 2 months of the fiscal year. So you're not like,
Right.
typically you're not going to, you in so
Right.
deficit that you're out of money and you adjust there. But
Yeah.
we can't, I just want to be clear, we can't just like move.
Middle of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. Yeah. And then we do also have our town meeting. I mean, I know we don't like to do financial stuff, but we do have one scheduled in October too. Okay. So does that clarify it for everybody? And so we have,
So I'm more on the point of when is it needed? You were saying, unfortunately, my
So I
93-year-old
was
mother
saying
called. I have to make sure.
that if you have
everything-
symptoms, as far as I know,
Yeah.
insurance companies are, you go to your doctor and they have a PCR test and
Right.
everybody's happy with
If
that.
you have symptoms.
If you, the problem comes when you want to, go travel and then you need a PCR test to travel.
Right.
Someplace, summer camp wants a PCR test.
So they still require those tests.
They are still, at least they were, we just did a whole series of them
Right,
as summer camp's starting.
right.
You would think that would end sometime soon, but when you need those, there's not a really good option for doing it.
So I mean, could we just limit the reasons for which one would get? Town
Yes,
test?
but typically what you would limit it to are the same, in other words, it would be people with symptoms and things like that.
No, I mean, sometimes you send them to the
people who are
doctor.
sick versus, see, the problem is though,
It's the people that are not sick that really.
No, it's the not sick people I'm talking about. The sick people, you tell them to go to the wherever,
Right.
and there's a reporting, I mean, what you're reporting.
I think
But-
it's also just, is that a service that we're in, right? I
Right,
mean,
yeah.
the idea behind these tests in the beginning was we needed to be able to
Public health.
detect it right away.
Right,
Are we
right.
in the service of providing PCR tests to prove that somebody doesn't have it? I don't. think
No,
that's-
it's more of a
I
town,
don't think
it's a
that's what it
service
was
to the
all about
citizens.
From the beginning.
No, it's just.
And also there's the, do you really, do we really want Brian staffing for the very occasional person who might come in for one of these things?
And I think there might be other costs that aren't, necessarily just the cost of the test. There's going to be more time necessary to, endorse the checks and keep the bookkeeping and, that's extra work.
A little bit, but I mean, we are in that's sort of a service of it. But if an individual needs a test to travel, say, isn't that like $100 when you go to Circle Health or someplace?
Easily, and if you need one rapidly, it's gonna be more than that.
Right, so, I mean, I don't feel strongly, but I mean, it would be a service. It would not be, it's not driven by health need. I agree with that. And I don't think we should be doing, if people feel like they have symptoms, they probably should be going to a healthcare professional anyway, but it is inconvenient to have to get tests when they're required. If we could narrow the criteria, I mean, people can always lie, but I don't think they would ask for tests unless they had a real need, right? So,
How many positives have you had lately?
So within the last 2 weeks, very few, maybe 3, 4.
Out of how many tests?
I'd have to go back and look, but probably 60.
Mhm.
So we've been running at like an 8% positive. I sent you
Mm-mm,
Nine?
not- Nothing recent.
I sent somebody fairly recently. Oh, maybe I sent them the mosquito, the percentages, and it's, in the 8% range since we started, which I think is pretty high. I mean, we had periods that were low and periods that were very high. And a month ago, month and a half ago, we were in the 25% range, for positive. And we're down much lower than that now. Now, does that mean that everybody who's has symptoms is just doing rapid
Home
tests,
tests.
antigen tests? I don't know.
If
Travis,
you could ramp back up quickly if things change dramatically in public health, something happened.
So that's the plan, is to keep our ability to do it. And if somebody called us up, we could do that. The main reason I want to keep the ability is for public safety. So police and fire and dispatchers and DPW and people like that we have the ability to, because obviously if we have EMTs going into your house that have COVID, that's a problem. So
So are
if
you-
one of my people needs a
You'll-
test, we get
We
a
will
test.
continue it for town employees.
Right.
Absolutely. I think that's.
And I just
easy to
absorb it,
qualify
cost of
too,
doing
because we
business.
know who's
And that's underpinned by, I mean, I get a mixed message from Board of Health surprised me somewhat, given how conservative they've been in the statement that the antigen tests are as effective. I've heard always that they're effective when you are sick. It's good. They have low false positivity rate, but
So if they're positive, if they come back positive, you're positive.
right. But if
Come
it
back
comes with
negative,
negative, you're right.
Yeah, you don't know. And
Right.
so what they're claiming is if you take it over 2 days,
Right.
the two tests,
The two tests together, right.
that becomes pretty good.
Okay.
I still think PCR tests finds it a little more quickly.
Yeah. Well, quicker than 2 days because you guys are pretty fast on that. Right.
Well, I just mean in terms of, if you do a PCR test, it may come positive. When you do an antigen test, it may come up negative. And then the next day when you do an antigen test, it may come up positive. In other words,
Right.
the PCR test is just a more,
Right. Yeah. Right. Okay. So you're doing those tests still. So you're maintaining your capability and
ability to do it. But we aren't going to staff it every day from 4 o'clock to 4.
right.
All right, are
So I
we,
guess I would say, yeah, if you're keeping it for employees, I think that they can hear me. If you're keeping it for employees, I think that's great, but if somebody shows up and they're clearly very sick, don't turn them away.
Yeah, well,
And we'll have a bunch of antigen tests and absolutely.
all right, so it sounds like we're.
I'm not good at saying no. Everybody knows that.
Take that off the recording. All right, so it sounds like we're comfortable ending the service as a whole on Thursday as of effective July 1, and that you will maintain your capability
Okay.
for those who emerging town hall
I hate to bring
employees.
this up, but if I come up with a way to do it for free, you guys are okay with that?
Yeah, as long as it doesn't.
I've seen of an option, but I didn't like the turnaround time. I was just mailing it off. I don't,
What about if the legislation comes back with the 90%? Are we okay with that?
Well, why don't we revisit
cross
that?
that bridge
if-
when we get
Yeah.
to it.
Got it.
when it
Okay.
comes.
Very good. Thank you.
All right, we're all good?
Yep. We're
All
good.
righty, great. Thank
Yeah,
you.
Brian.
I've kind of,
Yeah, do
you
we-
saw me, I already kind of told the mosquitoes this is kind of what's happening. 'Cause I think
Do-
people wanted to know.
Yeah, shall we make this a formal motion then?
Sure. Why not?
Who wants to move that?
I wouldn't know what to say.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
All right, so I
Well,
move,
discontinue, yeah.
I move that we discontinue PCR testing at the fire department, all except for town employees or an emergency basis.
You could say we discontinue free testing.
Yeah, free testing.
There you go.
Um,
Then we have the option of that.
for, except for town employees and as decided by the fire chief,
Effective July
effective
1,
July, to end July 30th,
June 30.
June 30th.
June 30th.
Second?
I'll second that.
All right. Any more
So,
discussion? Or can we
At
vote?
the end, you kind of made a weird wording, like you moved to end it effective June 30th, but you
So
had,
July, effective July 1 will no longer provide the.
okay. Got it. Thank you.
Okay. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, Chief Soros. And of course, thank you again for the tremendous, you and your, all of the folks at the fire department. We really appreciate it. It's been an amazing resource. All right, we're going to try to catch up a little bit. Steve, I know you were going to do the full-time police officer.
That's right. I am playing the role of Chief
Yeah,
Fisher tonight.
but may I let Lori, if you're okay with it, I'd like to let Lori Eckler jump ahead to Youth Commission and come back to that if you're all right. And then Lori doesn't have to stay. Although you may want to hear about our
I
new
have so
full-time
many things
police
to do. I
officer.
might leave.
Okay, so anyway, welcome Lori. Lori
Thank you.
Eckler is the chair
you.
of the Youth Commission.
Thank you.
And we're glad to have you. And we wanted to just get an update from you on, I know COVID has put a real wrench into things with the Youth Commission, but where you are and what you're thinking about going forward and also the membership.
Okay,
uh,
So
for
I
the
thought it was a good
commission.
idea for everyone to have everyone on the same page and just give you an overview of what the Youth Commission is from my understanding and what we were mandated with. So it's a town committee made up of about 5 to 8 Carlisle parents with middle school age children typically. The primary goal is to provide a safe, all-inclusive and fun monthly event for Carlisle middle school residents, regardless of where they go to school. So it could be Carlisle Public School kids, but they could go to school elsewhere and attend as well. These monthly events have become known as Friday Night Live. They usually happen on the first Friday of the month. Oftentimes not starting till till October, giving everybody time to get settled in. Typically, they hold them in the gym with a sort of an open gym event, and then in the auxiliary gym with sometimes a DJ, sometimes a movie. We mix it up during the year. We do Halloween events. We do a dodgeball tournament in the winter. It's for students in grades 6 through 8, but for the dodgeball tournament, we allow the 5th graders to get a little taste of Friday Night Live and participate in the dodgeball. What else? So in order to put this on, it does take a team of parents, but we also ask that if your child is going to participate, that you chaperone one event during the year. That is often a challenge to get parents to chaperone. And it also does take a certain type of parent to be on the Youth Commission. I would say a parent with a good temperament who likes teenage kids is really helpful. So we sort of hand select who is a good fit for the role. And so in order to have it, we reserve the space for the school. This is not a school sanctioned event, so we reserve the gym space for the school business manager. And then the other thing we need is one person needs to be certified as a crowd control manager, which has been me for a long time. I think going forward, we'll have at least 2 people, because if it's just me, then I have to be at every Friday Night Live without. And now that I don't have any more middle school children, I probably will not be going to Friday Night Live anymore. So the plan is for me to stay on. I'm on until 2023. That's my term, but I agreed to go in the fall and do a few of them, at least 1 or 2, to get people who are new to the committee familiar with the process of running them, do the training. We do a one-night training with the parents and the kids as to setting expectations, behavior, what you can bring, what you can do, and then probably step away. And we have a number of people who are interested in staying on, and then we have a couple new members who are interested in joining the group. I think the term lasts 3 years. We get sworn in as and so the other thing you need, you have to be a crowd manager, and then you have to pull a permit with the fire department prior to every Friday Night Live, a standard permit for safety. And then we fill the permit out and we keep those permits on record just to keep it safe. That's kind of it. And then we pay, so the town funds, typically what the town pays for is the custodian, so the last time we had Friday Night Live was, I look back, I think it was February of 2020, because I think we had the March 2020 scheduled, and I think we had to pull the plug at the last minute because that's when everything went south. So back then it was about $185 for the custodian. And it was about $300 for the quote Friday Night Live manager that we hired, which was a special ed instructor from Beverly that's been doing it for years with us, who would come with all the gym equipment, and he kind of knew the routine, and he would buy all the snacks first in advance. And so the town paid for him. and paid for the custodian. That was a bit, so that totals about $4,500 a year. I'm sure the price for the custodian has probably increased since that time. I'm not exactly sure. And then back in the day, there used to be a DJ that we paid for that was not inexpensive. And what happened is attendance started to wane. So we started mixing up the DJ, and not doing the DJ every time because it became really expensive to have the DJ if there were only, 15 kids there. So I'm hoping the kids are really in need of a social event. So I'm hoping that in the fall, if we start these up again, they'll become much more popular and we'll have good attendance. It will be new again, right? And we haven't, I think people have asked for it, and I think that the feeling was it wasn't safe, and we did not want to be the super spreader event at the school. We thought it was most important to keep the kids in school. We had checked in with Linda from time to time, and the decision was that it wasn't really a good idea to have Friday Night Live. And so a couple times during the year, we sort of toyed around with the idea, and then something would happen and we're like, oh, probably not a good idea. So, but I think we're game to kick it off again in October.
I'm like 6 years away from it. I don't remember, like, so.
Weren't you on the youth commission at one point?
No,
Were
I
you?
was
No,
not, no.
okay.
I was a chaperone at. Saturday
You were a
Night Live.
chaperone, okay.
So the snacks, or is there charge for the snacks?
So
and
we
where does that money
usually
go?
charge somewhere, it depends. So what we charge depends on what the activity is. So I think we're at $5, and then maybe we went to $10 when the attendance started to wane and we needed to pay for the DJ. I think the last one we did, we were back down to $5, but usually that money pays for, it kicks in towards the DJ and it covers the cost of the
And it
snacks.
goes back into the revolving fund?
It does. I think we spent, I think there's like a kitty of like $275 or something that's sitting in a cash box that's left over from the snacks of the last time we had it, that hasn't been spent.
But we do allocate 4,000 in the town budget every year,
Right.
right, to cover the.
I don't know what, I honestly do not know what you
So does
allocate
the
every
cash
year.
not go back to the town?
The
into
cash
revolving
does-
fund? It just stays in a.
It stays in a cash, like a cash box, because there's never that much
Okay.
cash. That's what's happened.
Well,
Right.
We did have
So-
a memo from Kelly
Right.
saying that the revolving fund has a current balance of $10,287.73.
Okay.
That's not in the cash box.
That's
But
not in the
that's
cash
not
box.
in the cash box.
That is not in the
No.
cash box.
Right.
The cash
Right.
box.
Usually what we do is out of the cash box, Mike, the manager,
Yeah.
assuming he is going forward, he gives us the receipt and we give him,
Reimburse them.
$200 for the snacks for that night or
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
General fund budget was voted at $4,015, and last year's expenses were paid from that line. And the last year that expenses were paid from that line, was in fiscal 20.
Right, and there were probably 2 months that were paid from that.
There's
Right.
also expenses being paid from the cash box.
So from the cash box, it's snacks, it's seltzer and junk food.
I also, chaperone, it seemed to me I remember collecting money for the snacks.
Yeah, that's what,
If we would sit first at the
sit
door,
at the
collect
table, you-
money when the kids came in,
Mhm.
and then later we would go transfer ourselves to the snack.
Yeah. And
Exactly
pizza,
what
wasn't there
happens.
pizza stuff?
and pizza,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah,
there's
that's
pizza
right.
too. Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Pizza,
that sort of
sometimes they pay
breaks
$1
even.
a slice for the
$1
pizza.
slice for
Yeah,
pizza,
yeah.
A quarter for a glass of.
Yeah, seltzer. I did away with the soda.
Yeah.
I was the bad guy that made seltzer instead of soda.
So you said that you have some people in mind to join the commission.
So there's some people
Yeah.
that are still on that are, their term ends in 2022.
Right, and we have them.
And so
we're
most of
doing
them
a-
have agreed to renew. I think everyone's agreed to renew.
And have you told anyone at town hall about that? Because we have them we have the appointments actually on our agenda tonight. And I think what we have is that nobody other than yourself is continuing on the youth commission.
So I don't think
Um,
that,
So that, we don't know the latest, I guess.
so everyone, I think everyone you have listed, Katie Audette, Stephanie Keen, Kathy McDonald, Amy Smack, and myself. I think that's the 5 people, right? No, I don't think he is continuing.
His
we-
youngest just dropped.
Yeah, his youngest just graduated. Yeah.
Um,
And so they would be sworn back in, assuming they were approved. So we've never presented, we've never done this before. So
Right.
we've always just, every time the term's up, we
Right.
go, we meet with the town clerk, she swears us in again, and we
Right.
just move forward.
right. So we're trying to do a little better on. all
I
of
think that's
this.
good. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so,
And
typically we Jen put something out. I don't know if you got anything from Jen Gibbons to each of the chairs asking about who was listed and who was planning to continue.
Never got anything.
Okay.
I also have a note on Youth Commission that there's no staggered among everybody's.
No staggered terms.
No staggered terms. So
Right.
it might be that this coming time, you might have two people with a 1-year term, two with a
Yeah,
2-year
it
term,
used
and
to
two with
be-
a 3-year term, so that you don't have everybody going off all at once.
Exactly. I think that's
And
really
The
important.
kids with the parents with the younger kids should get the longer
The
term.
longer term, exactly. No, it helps to bring people in when they're sixth graders
Yeah.
and then,
Right.
because a lot,
And then-
not all these people, but some will be coming off next year. So.
Right.
Yeah.
right.
So, do you have openings on the commission? It sounds like you might have one, right?
We
With
might
one
have one
person
opening,
going up.
but I
Well,
did put it out there to the other members to, if it, I will say it does help to have a male, female
mhm,
mix.
Mhm.
And right now we have all female, but in the past we've had a mix. And I
yeah,
think it helps to have a mix,
yeah,
especially if something goes
Dads and
awry, even
yeah.
though that doesn't really happen, but just
Yeah.
in case.
so I think, we haven't really ever talked about how positions get filled, sort of in a, sort of any process for that, but if a member of the general public approaches you or would like to be considered for a position, how do you handle that? I mean,
no
not
one's
the
ever-
general
yeah,
public, but let's
no
put it
one's
this
ever-
way,
no
a
one's-
parent,
Yeah,
a parent of kids that are in the school. It's not somebody that you had thought about asking, right? But they reach out to you and want to be part of the
it's a really good
commission.
question. Usually we're begging people to
Right,
join the commission, so I
right.
don't think we've had that experience, so I'm
Yeah.
not sure how I would react, and I don't know how I should react.
Because I think we would encourage anyone who
I think typically
volunteers
the
to be
process is, and
considered.
It's a little bit harder here, just have some comments about the website, but they would either contact you or they would contact us and say, hey, we'd like to be
Yeah.
on that board. If we get it, we should send it to the chair and say, what do you think? You should talk to the person.
Yeah, I mean, they have to
As
be
a commission,
queried.
you
There's a
should talk to
process.
them, and then you would recommend.
That
To us,
person,
that
right,
we appoint them.
Right, I think first they get quarried and then.
No, typically you'd wait and do that
You have to do that
after we
after you
appoint
approve
them. Yeah,
them?
because
Okay.
well, if you don't send them forward, then there's no point in having them be
Quarried,
quarried, right? And then you'd wait till after they were appointed, yeah, and then could do that. So
Do you know that have people approached you that wanted to join?
I heard from one person, which I can pass on to you.
Okay.
This was a while ago,
Okay.
probably 10 months ago, when maybe there was some idea that maybe it would restart again. So, yeah, I can pass it on to you later. And then the other thing that, what about, so do you have formal meetings or no?
So typically we meet maybe once a year formally.
Okay,
Usually that's the night we're sworn in and we might have a meeting to plan for the year. And other than that, it's sort of,
yeah,
couple phone calls. This is
Yeah.
going to be dodgeball night. This is
Yeah.
going to be, we sort of set the schedule in advance usually. And then who's hanging the poster at the school, who's doing
Right,
this, who's
divvy
doing
up
that, yeah,
assignments.
Who can come. And then we have a sign up genius for chaperones.
Yeah.
So usually, historically, I'd say the majority of the youth commission shows up on the night of Friday Night Live. And they are part of the chaperones. And then we recruit, depending on what we think the numbers are going to look like, we recruit additional chaperones with the sign up genius.
yeah.
And typically it's as
Yeah,
with most
I
things,
would-
it's the same people every time that come. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think you need to have a lot of meetings, but I would recommend you appoint a treasurer.
Yep,
and
we've
you
had
have
a
some
treasurer in
kind
the
of paper
past. Yep.
trail that you
Yep.
submit,
Yep.
so the process is.
So you can see the whole, yep.
And also then have them know what funds you have available here in town too,
Yeah, that's,
right?
so I will
So-
say, at one point in the past, I went to I'm not sure how it got approved, but I think I went to, Priscilla Dumpka and I asked, and she must have come to you and got permission, or she came to the select board at the time and got permission, and we brought in a speaker. It would be
Yeah.
nice to do,
Yeah.
if there's that much money, I don't know what's gonna happen to that amount of money, if it's gonna roll over or if it's gonna get spent down and we'll get $4,000 for next year. But I think to bring in some speakers from time to time, I mean, we
At
brought
the
in.
FNL or at separate?
Well, we
event?
did it as a separate event. We brought in a woman that was internet safety and sort of building awareness with the kids about
Mhm.
the perils of social
Mhm.
media.
Yeah,
You know,
Steve.
we just, I learned today that, the Attorney General had filed suit against all these opioid manufacturers, and we're getting 12,144 from that settlement this year, than like 6 or 7,000 every year for the next 4 or 5 years. So, I did talk to the Board of Health, but I'm thinking between maybe you guys and the Board of Health, we could do some educational programming. Not speakers, as you say, there's this one former basketball player, Chris Herron.
Aaron, he's
Yeah,
an amazing, we've had
yeah,
him come before.
yeah.
To Concord, I think he came. He was great. There's
Yeah.
also another woman who wrote a book called I think The Addiction Inoculation. And the Center for Parent and Teachers had her come and speak a couple weeks ago. She was amazing. And I thought, oh, if we could get her to come and afford her.
Yeah.
And maybe it's something where we kick in and Concord kicks in and we can co-sponsor something.
Yeah, and
That'd be
I
great.
had suggested to Linda that, maybe we can run programs or do programs, regionally with others, because
Mhm.
we're, every city in town is getting this funds from the settlement.
That's great to know. So I think I would be very supportive of doing that.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of things like that would benefit our kids, middle school kids, before they go off to high school.
So that would be when you do have your first meeting.
Mhm.
I mean, that would be, this charter's kind of old and limited, so.
Right, it's a very, my understanding was a very specific charter, and that's
Right.
why I came and I said, could we do a speaker? And
Right, so you could, what would be the process if they meet and they have a discussion and they wish to broaden their charter, then they come back to us with it?
Yeah,
Well,
you
that's
could
fine.
draft something and
Okay.
bring it back. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it would be good. I think that is, I I think it's very good, to bring these things in, and coordination, again, just my recommendation, because the school does things, there's lots of other pieces of activities that the kids
Right.
here have that, some coordination with the other groups that might be doing that.
well, I think when she came, I can't think of her name, when she came, the internet woman,
Yeah.
we did it in such a way that she presented at school, I think to the,
Yeah.
we did like a dual thing with the
Yeah,
school,
okay,
that the
that's
school
good.
benefited and then
Yeah, good. Right.
FNL benefited.
Great.
But I think if we broaden our charter, I mean, the kids are in dire need of social events. And there's
Right.
the school no longer does any dances, but you see the lack of those
Right.
opportunities for social interaction, how it affects the
They
behavior.
no
'cause
longer
They don't have
do,
any time
but-
to practice, right?
Right.
Social skills.
Yeah.
So I think it's important. Friday Night Live, I mean, the last time I remember being really robust was when my now rising college junior was an
Right.
eighth grader.
I was probably there.
You might have been.
So I have a couple things. One, I think, if you want to do the speakers thing and everything, I think we do need to change the charter because
Okay.
it's very
Yep.
specific Friday
Right.
Night Live right now.
Right.
And the other thing that I notice is there's no contact information here at all. So if anybody was interested in reaching out to anybody, there's no way of contacting anybody on the commission. I'm looking at the website. So maybe we could add that.
Okay.
And then
I
Yeah,
thought
the
there was
town
because I
website,
thought
yeah.
the way because you have to register for Friday Night Live. And I thought,
I'm looking at the
yeah,
website.
okay. I thought there was a way for the registration
town
that had our
manager
names on it, but
Might be dealing with all this too.
Yeah,
If
well,
our
they
town
can
is,
manage their own website, their own
administrator.
webpage. And then just the other thing that's just, particularly since you're dealing with funds and everything, I think you really need to post agendas and do minutes.
Yeah.
You should have a treasurer. I mean, you're dealing with town funds, the town is. So if anybody's wondering what's going on, they should be able to come here and say, oh, when's the next meeting? And then see what was discussed in the other one. I think it's the law.
and do you think we should meet more regularly than once a year?
I think
then?
that what you should do is in the new charter, you should specify how often you're
Okay.
gonna meet and, it doesn't mean you can't move it, but, I would set the cadence.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think a minimum, Lori, of twice,
Okay.
beginning and end, because you really want to recap, especially if you're going to, change
Change the
things,
charter.
right? I mean, what's been happening is before COVID, you were doing the same thing over and over, so it was pretty routinized and you didn't really, people knew what they had to do and they just did it.
Right.
And nobody wants meetings just to have meetings, but I think Nathan's absolutely right. You're custodian of town funds and people need, people should know there should be clarity, so.
And the website's easy to update. Jen can help you with that.
Yeah.
to
Do you know
add.
Jen Gibbons, the assistant to the select
No,
board?
but I can
But she's great.
absolutely
and
reach out
yeah.
and figure out how we update it.
Yeah.
It's behind the scenes. There's some, it's through the rec. Kids register through the rec and there's a whole website there with contact information. So I don't know how exactly that's linked, but it is linked somewhere that people can find it. Contact information. is
You
a
mean,
little
but
bit
do
different.
people
website
register for
is-
FNL through the rec?
So you have to register, well, it's through the rec website, but it's a separate link on their website where they register. So you have to register to attend.
So you could
um,
add that link also
link
to the
to-
youth commission
Yeah, I-
website.
On the
It-
town website. Yeah.
I thought it used to be there. Maybe it's not there anymore, but it used to be linked through there because,
There's a PDF
yeah.
about Friday Night Live.
So maybe it's somewhere in there, there's a link somewhere. It's not easy to find probably.
Well, it
but,
gets pushed to
yeah.
the middle school parents when you have the event, right? That's typically.
It gets pushed, but there's also, I know because when I go in to change to update the link, I sometimes access it through the town website. So can I tell you exactly how I do it? No. And then I log into this special place.
So
and
I need to
update all the
register my
information.
child. If you click there, there's a link.
And how do you mentioned that FNL is open to the kids who are not attending, the middle school aged
How do we
kids?
vet them?
No, well, that is another question, but how do you promote it outside that channel that?
So we put
parents
it in the,
get?
new. So I think it goes into, I think I wrote it here and I can't remember all the places. I think it goes into the Buzz, it goes into the newspaper, it goes on to the
Okay, so
Facebook page.
other,
We put it in as many places as we
parents
can
can
think as
find it.
possible. I don't know that we actually send it to the private schools, but I think it's in being
Yeah,
in the
okay.
newspaper, people get it.
Yeah.
And then they sign their kids up and then that gives us all the medical information. So if there's an allergy, we have, and we print that out before every Friday Night Live as part of our checklist. So we know it, if somebody takes a basketball to the face, that we have their information readily available. So we can call the parent and say, your kid has a bloody nose, you might want to come get them.
And detached
What'd you say?
retina. And a detached retina.
That
Gosh.
hasn't happened. Don't
Gosh,
curse
let's
me.
hope not. Well, I think this is great. It's been a
Yeah,
good
thank you.
discussion and we really appreciate you coming in to talk with us and we want to be supportive. We
Thank you.
think the Youth
Thank you.
Commission has a lot to
No, I'm
offer.
really, I'm
So,
hoping we can do it again next fall because it is a great event. So
yeah,
thank you
good.
for sponsoring it.
Thanks for coming.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, Laurie. All righty. So let's go back to the appointment of the full-time police officer.
Yes, I'm playing the role of Chief Fisher. He was on vacation. So you may recall that in the upcoming budget, the FY '23 budget, a 12th police officer was approved at town meeting. The chief has interviewed and is recommending Richard Glenn of Dracut. Richard currently, well, he's a graduate of Merrimack College, both in criminology as a major and a master's degree in criminology, and is currently a member of the Merrimack College Police Department. Has a great background. You may recall that one of the reasons we are pursuing the 12th officer is the fact that it will help cut down on some overtime based on, sick leave, vacation, injured on duty, that type of thing. So I would recommend the appointment of Richard Glenn as a Carlisle police officer, subject to passing the appropriate academy and physicals and things like that.
May I have a motion? Did we have one in the packet?
Don't we have one? Yes.
Okay, I move that the select board approve the recommendation of the police chief to appoint, well, and in this case, the police chief and our interim town administrator to appoint Richard A. Glenn of Dracut to serve as a full-time police officer for the Carlisle Police Department, subject to successful completion of a background investigation.
May I have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion?
I think this would be the first time we had appointed a full-time police officer without meeting them.
Yeah, I thought he was going to be here this evening. I don't know,
Yeah,
unless he's,
the
unless he's
officer-
zooming in, which I don't think he is.
Yeah.
This would be the first time we.
I mean,
That's true.
Without actually
Yeah.
That's
meeting.
true.
them.
I asked the chief to make him aware, so I don't know why he's not here.
Good point.
Or we can
Should we hold on
wait 2 more weeks.
till July 12th?
and the chief will be back.
I hate to stick in the wheel, but
Mm.
it would be the first time that I can recall
Yeah.
us not meeting somebody that we were hiring.
That's true for all town employees or what's
No.
the standard?
No, I think that
Police
Yes,
officers.
actually.
anybody that we're approving the appointment of,
Right.
yes, we have, and even part-times, I think we have. um,
Yes,
I don't know, that's just what,
We haven't hired any part-time police officers for a while, but
Right.
yeah,
certainly the
I think
full-time.
actually, part-times, I think we have just
And
done off
yes,
of the
and-
list.
And to Travis's other question, yes, if it's another department, like. department head,
If
unless it's
we're
like a-
charged with approving it,
Approving it,
then
then
you
yeah,
would
we
see
meet
them.
them.
We-
Like
Yeah.
accountant we met with.
Right.
and,
Yes.
Finance department director,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
He does.
Fire department, we don't, because he's on his own.
Brian, yeah, you want to come up to the mic?
One question, and that is, I don't know the answer to this. Yeah, can they do the other parts of it? You said. subject
Background
to-
check, yeah.
Can they do all those things?
I don't see why not.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't see
Because
without,
All those things, I know on our end, that those things take a lot of time.
Right.
And that, as long as they can do those things, then it may not affect them. as much.
I don't see why not. I mean, what I don't know, since John's on vacation, if, how quickly that background check would take and when he'd be working this person into the shifts, but
That would be the same whether we
right,
approved it. or didn't.
exactly.
So he was
Exactly.
asked to be here, right?
I asked John to ask him, but I don't know if that got carried on or not, because right before John left, he was involved with that search of the little boy in Lowell. That was out multi-days, so I don't know. I just
Okay.
don't know.
Send a message, right?
Okay,
So,
So there was a motion, but it's not been seconded, so I think. we just-
It was seconded.
We're
Yeah.
in Discussion.
Okay.
Yeah,
so,
we're in the
sorry.
discussion phase.
Um,
So it sounds like I think I would certainly be more comfortable if we have a chance to meet him. And if we think it's reasonable to approve that the police chief do the background investigation, we could approve that going forward and then have at our July 12th meeting, meet the officer and consider approval then.
Yeah, how about if we
Consider
vote on- How about
appointment
if we vote on this
approved.
motion and I can make another one?
Yeah, I think that's a better
Okay.
idea. Yeah, we need to dispose of this motion. There's no
Okay.
point. Yeah.
So let's vote on the motion that was put on the floor by Nathan to
No, it was-
recommend.
I put it
I'm,
on the
I'm
floor.
sorry. Put on the floor by Kate to appoint Richard Glynn. All those in favor?
Wait a minute, I'm confused.
Okay, we're going to vote on this first
Silly, just
motion.
withdraw the
It's
motion.
it's
Don't do
easier to
that. Don't do
withdraw
that.
the motion.
Withdraw the motion. Don't vote against it. Right? We'll
Well,
forget
all
that
right. So
back
Kate,
then.
do
I-
you want
I
to
would like
withdraw the
withdraw
motion?
motion.
Okay.
Second.
And, okay.
Oh, you just withdraw.
I'll second that, the withdrawal, if we do that.
We don't have to vote on withdrawal. It's just.
It's just a withdrawal.
Yeah,
Okay, I move that the select board approve the chief of police moving forward with the completion of background investigation and any other items needed for Richard A. Glynn of Draycott, and request that we be able to meet with Mr. Glynn at our next meeting prior to approving the appointment.
second.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, that motion carries unanimously. All right, then let's move on to the annual appointments and liaison assignments. So let's take those separately. In your packet, you have the, all right, you have the public officials.
We've done those
And we
already.
did those at the last meeting. So then you've dropped down to where it says town boards and committees. And Kate, you had a couple of things you
I
wanted
have
to mention about
several-
this?
Several.
Okay.
Things. First of all, on the Affordable Housing Trust, it's not 4 3-year and 3 2-year appointments. They're all 2-year appointments going forward, because that's the
Okay.
max appointment that can be done. What we had done was we had done 4 2-year and 3 1-year, so that we would have a staggered reappointment schedule. So it should, they should all be 2-year appointments with a 4 and a 3 stagger.
Okay.
Okay.
And
Get
does
it
the
started.
To start.
term, the, what's here now, the new expiration? So
So
you and Kate going, you and Mark going for 2 years, and then everyone else, their term ending next year. Is that accurate?
that is accurate.
Okay, great. So we
Um,
can change the heading later, but
Right.
that, what's listed here is accurate.
Right. And
Okay.
I would really love this, the one that says vacant 2-year is really a, sorry, there's a vacant 2-year and a vacant, we should get rid of that 2-year because it, yes, it's
Okay.
2
Vacant
years.
appointments.
But the second vacant one is really the end of somebody's term who left, who was who moved to a different town. An unexpired term, right. And I would love for another select board member to volunteer for either of those 2 vacants, but I'm suggesting the 1-year term, just to get their feet wet. Because we have to have a minimum of 1 select board member on the trust. I am up for reelection next year. I may or may not run. If I do run, I may or may not get elected. So there will be definitely a vacancy there. And for succession and for continuity, I think it would be nice if we have somebody from the select board fill one of those slots. And, if it makes it less scary to fill just a 1-year slot, I say fill the 1-year slot. If you don't mind being there 2 years, take the 2-year slot. So
Well, can we come back to
so we can
that
come back to that.
question? Okay.
On Community Preservation Committee, again, there are 3-year slots. They're filled by, they're not appointed by us, really. They're appointed by their own boards.
Right.
And the slots really belong to the boards. And I'm just wondering if they shouldn't also be staggered. But I don't know how you deal with that. I think it's awkward that there's a 3-year term for something that's filled from other boards, and they, some of them are elected boards and some of them, is there any, the
Reccom,
Reccom and Historic are not elected.
right.
So I don't know. It's just something I think we should think about going forward. And the Barney Arnold one should be for 2023 and not for 2025.
Because that's,
Because that's again, the end of the unexpired term of Luke's.
gotcha.
Okay.
Okay.
On Cultural Council, again, it's a matter of staggering the staggered 1, 3, and 1, and maybe we should readjust those to 2, 2, and 1. And again, for Municipal Facilities Committee, should be 1, 2, and 2 stagger, and right now they're not. And
Let me just ask a quick question here. So wouldn't we need to do these corrections on the charters for these committees?
no, I think what happens is somebody drops off, then somebody new comes in, and rather than doing the unexpired term, we've just kind of been, we haven't been careful
Uh-huh.
about putting in the
Continuing
proper-
with the
with the
staggering.
Staggering. And so a lot of the staggers are kind of cattywampus. But anyway, that's something we can.
Well,
discuss.
it's also not clear from some of these which, like, looking at MFC, you've got Carrie, who's a school committee rep,
Right.
and everybody else is just like at large. I mean, it's not, I wish it was, it's got to be more clearly laid out, like these ones are reps from, where committees appoint reps, and these are at large. And
I went
it's-
back and reread the Municipal Facilities Committee, and there's no requirement for anybody to be a rep from anywhere.
all right, so Carrie is as Carrie, not as school committee rep, is that
She
what you're
is a
saying?
school committee rep.
He was
Um,
elected as school committee rep because we had one historically.
Okay,
Right.
but not in the charter.
Just- We had decided to reach out and ask them.
Right.
Right, and historically, there's also been a select board rep. And the reason that it was important, I think, when Christine Lear was no longer the school committee rep, she just kind of dropped into a regular member, at large member. And the reason we really wanted to keep the school committee rep beyond the fact that there was one historically is because we were trying to regionalize the school and town
Maintenance. and-
maintenance
yeah.
departments. So we thought it was really important to keep somebody from school on the
Yeah.
committee. So that one is, again, it's not horrible, but it does have it's got a bad, the stagger is not great.
And this has, for instance, you, Kate and Christine, your terms are expiring at the end of this year, at the end of June, but it doesn't indicate that you've,
Which one are you looking at?
I'm looking at municipal facilities,
I
sorry.
don't see Kate on there.
No, I'm the vacant.
Kate is the second one under municipal facilities.
Right. And Steve Hinton is taking Christine Lear's slot.
Okay, but that's not reflected here. Okay. But I do see Steve, was there an appointment? Did I see his name coming up?
It should- where-
Steve
today-
Ledoux for an appointment further down? Oh, God, I thought I just saw that.
On the zoning board of appeals.
Is that what he's getting? No, I thought I just saw an appointment.
He wrote a letter.
Was it a
saying he
letter
would
of
like to-
interest?
Yes.
Yeah.
He would, he
'Cause I thought I just saw that when I reviewed
He wrote a
this.
letter of interest for the Municipal Facilities Committee.
Yeah,
and,
that's what I thought I saw,
yeah.
but I don't think it's in here. I
It's
must
not
have
in the
seen it somewhere
packet.
else. Okay.
In the packet. Okay.
So we may have to hold on a couple of these where there's these questions about who's actually on it. I guess
Well,
the
I think-
problem is if they want to meet, right, between now and July 12th.
Which
Well,
ones
I
are
don't
we?
understand
worried
what
Well,
the
about?
question is about
municipal facilities. So this is not listed correctly, but so Kate, you are going off. Is that what
It
you're
is
saying?
listed correctly.
Well, it says
You're
2022.
looking at the
nor-
old one.
Oh, whoa. Okay, sorry. Well, that helps. All right, and then
Okay.
it's got Steve.
Steve Hinton would be the new
Okay,
appointment.
okay,
Okay.
thank you.
All
But see, it doesn't have, so you're
Mine
it's
is
now
vacant.
listed as vacant.
Right.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
It should have a reference. It would be helpful. This is the third time poor Jen has to do it, but I think there should be a reference column or a notes column because it's very confusing.
Okay. Well,
Well, what would be in there?
Well, like so-and-so took over from Christine Lear or
Oh.
accepting. I mean, we have no tie back to, it's like, weird. But anyway.
well,
Okay,
Personnel Board. Are we appointing a
Are we
Personnel
going-
Board? Because nobody's been meeting.
We struck that from our list.
Well, it's on this list, and so and it's even got Steve Ledoux in there for a term in 2020.
well, we've, I
So,
think we should consider this inactive and not do appointments. Because that's the case.
Was the personnel board created by an article of town meeting? I think it may have been. so I'm not sure we can just
Yeah, but
disband it.
your
Your
microphone
micro-
on?
I
We
don't
need to-
know.
Yeah, I think we need to look at that.
Yeah, I agree. So it's one I would not like to appoint tonight. That's what,
Yeah,
that one's one I would like to
all
hold.
right, so we'll hold
And
on.
then Recreation Commission, I also think it should have a stagger. I had a question about the Traffic and Pedestrian Safety Committee and why we have a one-year term for that. Again, these one-year term things, especially when you have staff on them. Do they have to go get sworn in every year?
Yeah.
Staff and everybody?
Yeah, in the interest of time, I think it's a really good idea to try to update some of these things and look at the terms, but in the interest of our agenda for tonight, I think if we can focus on the appointments and we want to hold off on the personnel board, but if we could, and if you want to share your notes with
yeah.
others after the meeting.
Can I ask, why hold off on personnel board? And we can always, if we wanted to disband it later, but what if something comes up and we need the personnel board
Well, because
to
we've
deal with
authorized
something?
the town administrator to act on his own. I don't know if you
Pl-
remember. in
plus,
September, We made that change.
Plus,
but-
in the personnel policies, it was amended so that, for example, the position of assistant assessor because the assessors couldn't get the personnel board together, that it comes back to the town administrator making a recommendation to the select board. And the same thing with the new planner position. So there's mechanisms if they can't get together or whatever, there's mechanisms to keep things moving forward.
So well, Vanessa Brown,
Let's not go over the personnel board.
okay,
We
well,
already know that we've got Steve covered to be able to make
All right.
decisions, and we also know
Okay.
that none of them are responding to meetings.
okay. And the last one, let me see, I did have one, okay. The Transfer Station Action Committee, you have Laura Snowden as the newly appointed, and for some reason, her term is 2023. If it's a 1-year term, how can anybody have a 2024 term and everybody else is listed as 2024?
When we appointed I'm just so I can look on your thing, when we appointed the Transfer Station Action Committee back in whenever that was, January, February, when we approved that charter, they started off with everybody on a 2-year term and then agreed that as people came on, they were going to stagger the terms. So that's why they're listed as 2024. The current group, except for the new person, Laura Snowden, who I think we just approved at our last select board meeting. So the goal is to get to, the goal is to, because she wanted to try it out for a year. And so the goal is to then start staggering it as these 2-year terms are up.
Well, it was confusing once.
Yeah, yeah. No, I
That's why
get it.
I
Yeah.
highlighted it. Okay, those were my questions for the,
If we're talking about the newly appointed ones, so there's one that I noticed with the zoning board of appeals, which is the last one, which I think Eric Adams was voted as chair, and I think he would bump up to a standard member, but I don't know what the term would be.
yeah, he's the chair.
He's
He
the
shouldn't be an
chair.
Associate member.
Right, right.
Okay.
And then, yeah,
Okay.
and then we have a
So,
vacant.
An associate would be vacant. So somehow that didn't get, so shall we, did ZBA vote him in as chair?
They did vote him
Yeah,
as chair. I do
okay.
know that,
So-
but I assume that he is be
So
a
he's taken
full
the-
member.
So it looks like he has moved up to this vacant chair here.
The vacant
The vacant was my seat.
full-time,
Yes,
right?
so this
I think
Okay.
last time
this
we voted
is,
Eric Adams. I think that, last time we identified all these things, but for some reason we went ahead and we appointed some people. And that might be throwing us off because last time we did appoint some people. And I think zoning appeals was one of them. I guess that because there's no check marks asking us to appoint again.
Check mark means they want to be.
No,
The
check
check
mark.
mark means they've been asked and they want to
Right. And
continue.
there are no,
And
Yeah.
I don't know if he was elected to that last meeting. I think it's been subsequent to that. Could be wrong. They
Well,
meet
I mean,
once
I
a
thought,
month.
which ones in our last meeting, I guess we
We
could look
did
at our
appoint-
minutes, right?
We
did.
don't have any minutes, unfortunately, tonight for last time.
Okay.
So,
So I think, and then this gets,
Okay, I'm sorry to complicate it.
no,
but
no,
we
no,
should
that's
just-
okay.
We should
Yeah, we tried
figure
to
out
get
what we're
this.
gonna do
Yeah.
from a procedure standpoint.
I agree with that. I think
yeah.
Well, will it,
Anyway,
you think it'll hold up the zoning board of appeals if that group waits until July 12th?
They do have a meeting, the first non-holiday, so not the 5th, but the next, because the
So it would
4th
be
is a
the-
Monday, so the
Be
next.
The night before our
the night
select
before,
board meeting,
yeah.
so we probably do need to approve at least the 3 voting members, right? The associate members don't vote.
That's true, unless one, if a full
He's
member
not
is not
there.
present, then an
Gotcha.
associate will fill in.
You have some 24 people, right?
we have 23, 24, 23, 23.
You got, those people don't
None
need
of
to be
them,
reappointed.
none of them
Yeah,
are
they're-
need
none
to
of
be
them need to be
reappointed. I guess
reappointed.
it's just the.
It's
so
just the
that's
moving
really
up.
Internal to the ZBA,
Okay.
right?
I
'Cause we
just
don't-
want to make
no,
sure
no, no, I'm glad you
procedurally it's
raised it,
fine.
So it
It
just,
doesn't-
yeah, so good point, David.
Yeah, I think he needs to be appointed as a full member. With a term ending at 2023, because he's taking your slot.
That's fine.
Okay.
I haven't specifically asked him, but I'm assuming that, I know he's on there and he's been appointed chair, but,
Yeah.
or been elected.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, so I think we should just do that.
That's the only one.
All right, well, let's do that
In
right
fact,
now.
Eric,
We have
I
a
move
motion
that
to,
we appoint Eric Adams to the zoning board of appeals as a full member
With the term,
with the term expiring June 30th, 2023.
second.
all right, any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries unanimously. Then I think we want to hold off on the personnel board. And then were there any others where we said we needed to wait? No, I think
No,
we have everything
just-
else.
It was mostly
It's
my
more about the
comments
terms,
terms
right? So
and-
we'll come back and then the one other change
Okay,
is that Barney
let me make
Arnold's
this one then.
term should be, yeah, okay.
So I move that we appoint Courtney Miles Diddleary as the RecCom representative. I don't know why these, excuse me, since, yeah.
I think all you need to change is
um,
my term, and then we'll vote to approve the entire CPC
Okay.
committee along with all the others.
All right,
We can do it
so-
all together.
I move that we change the term for Barney Arnold and the Community Preservation Committee to be June 30th of 2023.
All right, and then I think
Sorry, what
other.
was that? That was voting to just change her term.
Mhm.
Well,
We haven't voted for
yeah,
you to
see,
be on.
that's,
though.
yeah, that's why I was gonna do the
Well, what I
whole,
was gonna say is just, well, okay,
Okay.
we could do the whole thing at once. What I was thinking is if we approve that change, then we can just take it separately, but then we could approve all of the committees all at once. Do you
But
think we should do it
but We
separately?
didn't vote on this document, so we don't need to vote to change the document.
Yeah, I feel like we
We're
shouldn't,
gonna Vote on the appointments of all these people.
but then you'll never get to the stagger. I mean,
Well-
it seems to me like I recommend we form a little subcommittee, like Kate to work with Steve or something and just sort it all out with the charters and the terms and make a complete slate of recommendations. This is what we recommend. And then these charters, get the stagger, get it all cleaned up. We can vote piecemeal tonight for people that have to meet between now and then, but it just doesn't reflect well on us that we're also disjointed on this.
This is terrible. But what
Well,
ones do
I
we
don't think
have to
it's-
vote on right now?
well, there's a
did
whole bunch
one.
that don't need to be fixed. How about we vote on the ones that don't need to
Well,
be
it's a
fixed?
piecemeal though. If they don't need to be fixed, but they're not meeting, who
We did
cares?
that last time and we're still. in the
Yeah,
same
we're still
spot.
futzing around. I agree.
Let's vote on the ones that absolutely need to meet between now and July 12th.
Well, we did that for.
Well,
we did that for Eric.
ZBA, FinCom,
They're all set.
We've already appointed Aaron.
when you already appointed Aaron.
Yeah,
When did we do that?
yeah, we appointed that a couple meetings ago.
And the land stewardship as well?
They meeting?
How do we know what we did and what we didn't do? That's the.
Well, you
part
got,
my-
that's part of what you got to do is go back through the
Why
minutes.
we shouldn't do it piecemeal,
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
Well,
I
okay,
know we
let,
did the Conservation Land Restriction Advisory Committee last time.
Have minutes, so it's hard to-
Yeah.
right.
So are there any that absolutely need to meet?
Well, I'm assuming Conscom, I'm guessing they meet pretty regularly. I don't think that stops over the summer. CPC, we already set a meeting for July, something or other. I've forgotten the date.
17th.
17th or something. So that could wait till after the 12th. I mean, that could wait till the 12th. But like Conscom has two members that have agreed to serve and their terms expire on Thursday.
No, I think, were they reappointed or they weren't? Were they, Nick and Helen were not appointed last time?
I don't know.
I mean, it doesn't really matter because Lee and Alex and all those guys can meet and they can sit in. Right? I mean, again, let them,
They can't vote.
they can't vote. That's it. They don't vote. So, you know,
They do have a quorum.
right.
Celebrations, we don't need to worry about, I think, right now, right?
Fourth of
Because they don't
July.
do anything over the 4th of July, do they?
If they do, they've already
say
planned it.
that I know Peggy is quite concerned about getting the Board of Registrars all set to go because of everything that's coming down the pike for her, but I think it could wait till July 12th.
Audit committee, ARPA doesn't have to be done. AgCom.
Don't say
not
that.
important, but it doesn't need to be done right away. And
You guys meeting?
I mean, you've got.
yes, we're meeting
got-
the 17th.
But you're already, but you have.
got your
you're
five
already
members
appointed.
We got the
that are all, that their
No,
terms are
vacants.
longer.
These are-
No, but I know, but you have 1, 2, 3, 4,
We only have three.
5. If Maureen stays on till it's filled,
There's
right?
still three.
Oh, 4, sorry. You got 4. Kate, Martina, oh, you got
No,
5.
it's-
Carolyn and what?
No,
Why?
We only have 3 members that go to 2023. Everybody else is expired.
No, no. Oh, I see what you mean. You want, the first 2 would need to get
Yes.
appointed.
Yes.
And so do you need that done tonight?
A member of the public
Affordable
is
Housing
saying
Trust,
that
the first one.
lapsed committee members on all town committees can vote until replaced.
19th.
Is
Say
that
it
true?
again, David?
Lapsed members whose terms have lapsed on all town committees may vote until replaced. I
Yes.
think that's true.
Okay.
All right, well
So
then.
I don't think we need to take any of these actions.
All right. Good. Let's do it. Let's do it all in one piece.
Now, I will say unless somebody on the
Unless
board is prepared to volunteer to work on all these terms and charters, we
I-
are not going to have that all figured
Well, I
out by
would work
July
on the
12th.
terms, not necessarily the charters, but certainly
Right.
on the terms so that we can.
Well, and also dig in with Jen on the minutes to know which ones we
Right.
voted
I
on.
think
But,
we just do
um,
it all over again.
Yes, we'll do it all over
But
again.
So
as a complete slate.
what are we looking to do to fix this? So we want to take a look at the terms. We want to make sure that the people we think are on. We want to know when their term expires.
Yes, yes.
And we need to know whether or not they are part of a committee or not part of a committee, that can appointed as part of that committee. But we're going to match it back to what the charter is, not to what
Yes.
we think it should be.
Right,
We're gonna
exactly.
match it to the charter.
That's correct.
I
And-
can help you work on that. Kate.
Thank you.
And also
Just wanna make
determine,
sure
No,
we're
I'm-
doing
I'm-
our thing.
Right.
I do like, I think was Dave's idea of putting in, for this, obviously not on the website, who was previously in the role would be very helpful for us.
right,
Yeah.
If it's such, or whether they're
completing someone
as a-
else's term.
completing somebody else's term, or are they a rep of another committee that's. been
Right.
appointed by the
Just
committee?
who was
Right.
there, just that historical.
Yeah.
Not just to flush that out.
Yeah.
every time.
And the other thing is if there are people whose term expires and they haven't indicated their interest, whether or not they want to continue, that needs to get, we need to find that out from
so-
those individuals. And a
but
number
I
of
don't
people,
wanna
Jen has
say-
reached out to those committee chairs to ask, and some of them have not responded.
Can I request that Steve Hinton be appointed to Municipal Facilities Committee so that I don't have to attend after the 30th?
I move to reappoint Steve Hinton to the
Please.
Municipal Facilities Committee to replace Kate at her term. And can't find it quickly enough, so I'm just
Yeah.
gonna say it that way.
Well, his term will be a 3-year term which would end at
I
2025.
thought he was replacing.
No, well, actually, he's going to replace, he's actually replacing, yes. Well,
So to a term to end 2025.
right, okay. Yeah,
whether he
Second.
wants it or not.
May I have a second?
4. That'll get them 4 people.
May I have a second?
I second that.
All right, any discussion about approving Steve Hinton to join the Municipal Facilities Committee? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right,
Okay.
that is
And there's one more vacant
approved
position
unanimously.
that one of you guys got to take.
All right, unless there's something else on here that anyone sees that needs to be approved tonight, we are agreeing to hold off until July 20th, July 12th, our next select board meeting. All righty,
Okay.
let
and-
us move ahead then on our agenda. To the liaison assignments. And again, we have an updated list.
I suggest we ignore all the appointed ones until.
And what's your thinking there, Nathan?
Will we be appointing to boards that we just said we wanted to clean up? The appointment. We
But
should-
these are just liaisons. These
no,
are not,
appointments.
No,
oh, where
the
they'd be
top
voting
ones are-
members.
I'm talking about the appointments. the
Yeah,
very first
okay.
block.
That's the
Top
very
one.
appointed ones,
Yeah.
ARPA.
Can you find out ahead of time?
CPC. Well,
Meeting time? So
okay.
if you can do it or not.
So
That's all right. July 12th is okay on all of these, I think, except maybe
Kinda like-
an MFC can wait, right?
kinda
We
like
have
the
enough
meeting.
people to vote.
now that, yes,
Yeah.
now that there's
Okay.
enough people to vote.
But then you
All
get-
right, is everyone comfortable with that? We'll wait on the appointed individuals section and then move down to the liaisons. We have town department liaisons where there are names on each one of these for us. And the boards and commissions, the only opening is for planning, which Travis and Nathan, you two are
We just discussed it. I'll be
And-
planning.
okay, so Nathan would go in for planning
Travis will be municipal facilities.
when we
Uh-huh.
do that.
Okay.
Okay, great.
But
Then,
I would like to talk to Dave about Highland because I would like to be on that.
I'll defer to Nathan. You can take it.
so you want to be that,
Yeah, I'd like. to be
all
on
right,
that.
David is fine with that.
Great,
So
thank
we'll
you,
make
David. I appreciate
those
that.
changes. Can go back up a second. So Highland is also appointed though, so we'll do that at our next meeting, but we'll indicate that it's David for Highland and
No,
it's,
no, it's
No,
no
I mean,
longer
sorry,
Nathan.
Nathan for Highland and Travis for MFC. So the section below that, all the section, the whole section that says liaisons, not the new committees, but the town departments, the boards and commissions, and the working groups and task forces. We have an individual for each one of those. So is that something we generally vote on? These liaison
That'd be a
assignments?
good
So may I have a motion, please, to accept those liaison assignments for the town departments, the boards and commissions, and the working groups and task forces?
I think, just to clarify, planning would be NB, not TS, because
Yes.
it's TSNB right now.
Correct.
Yes.
And I would like, can I just put a hold on IT? Because I want to suggest that become a full committee and
Oh,
not a working group. I think it's.
second
struggled
that motion.
because it is just
Yes.
A working group.
Yes.
Mhm.
And comes under the direction and the
What's,
agenda.
so
of the
can you
town
define
administrator.
those for me? What is that?
A working group is a group of people that we have directed the town administrator to work on a particular item. It's totally under his jurisdiction.
Mm.
It's not a public meeting. There are no minutes. And the town administrator reports back on the.
So then governance is not a working group. Governance is a task force. That's a different thing.
I'm not sure what
Right.
governance is. I'm talking
Is it-
just about
Yes.
IT.
Oh, IT, okay.
IT is a working group and I think it needs to be a full-fledged agenda minutes
Sure.
with a chair
Somebody to
committee. And
drive it.
so I would like to pull that out. I'd be willing to work on the charter for it.
Okay.
But I think we need to elevate it and it's
I agree.
important.
I agree with that, but I would like to see some document where we know, where we agree on a definition between working group, task force, board,
Mhm,
commission,
mhm,
Yeah.
committee,
right.
right? I don't know what any of the, I mean, this is the first time I've heard any explanation.
A
Yes.
workforce is a,
Anything you want it to be is what you told me, so. Are we
right, and
not-
it's completely under the
looking at-
direction of the town administrator. We just say, hey, Steve, could you do this? And he
Steve,
just comes back and reports.
Steve, they're not hearing you.
Oh, okay. Task force generally there's a task and but the task is completed, the committee dissolves.
Well, anyway, it seems like we have a general understanding of, but it'd be great if we could write all that stuff down. I don't know who.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did we get a motion on the floor?
Not
Or
yet.
No, I think we're proposing one, and the proposed motion would be that with the following changes, we would approve the liaison assignments for the town departments under the boards and commissions, changing TSNB to NB.
For planning.
No, you got to go one at a
I'm
time.
sorry, for planning.
start with the appointed, the MFC.
You don't think we can do town departments, boards and commissions and the,
We're not doing appointments at the top yet.
sorry,
We're
yeah,
not doing
no,
the
we're
appointed
skipping
ones.
appointments
Oh, okay.
because of the
I see.
other issues we just
Okay, got
did,
it. Yep,
right?
okay.
Okay,
Got it.
so let me
Assigned.
try that
How
again.
about if
So
I'll make the
you want to
motion?
make the
I will
motion
make
and
the
with that
motion.
correction and
Yes.
holding off on IT.
Okay, so I move that we approve the list of liaison assignments for town departments and boards and commissions with the change that under planning, it is only NB and not TS and NB. And the working groups, except that we hold out IT as presented tonight.
Second.
Any more discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that is unanimous. And so this will be posted on the website, hopefully. And then I think generally we do some kind of a press release. Anyway, we'll make sure the word goes out on this. And then obviously we'll communicate with the affected town departments, boards, commissions, and the task forces. Okay. That is the end of the liaison assignments.
Easy.
Okay, whew. All righty, so maybe we're at 8:59.
Can we do the goals next time?
We keep on pushing him off, didn't we?
What is our,
Last year?
what's our goal about the goals? To talk about
We
the ones we
wanted
want
to
to.
review this page, which I've been carrying with me for the last two meetings,
Right.
right? where
Yeah,
we
and I-
selected the
Okay,
5
let's jump
goals.
into it.
And yeah, because right now we're talking about not the July 12th meeting, but the July 28th meeting being the goals discussion with Ryan, assuming he can make that. So it'd be good if we could do the review, at least start it tonight.
But is the point of the review to say whether we accomplished or didn't?
Yeah, we're just talking about
Most
how
of
we
them I
did.
said,
Where we
no,
are.
no.
We set
no,
goals, how did we do?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it helps inform us then when we're going to talk about our next year's goals, when we get
And
to
you-
that.
We have an hour. Okay. All right.
Well, I think we can cut it shorter than that.
No, I mean, to do everything, we have an hour.
Oh.
Total mean on our
Tonight,
regular
total tonight's
agenda.
meeting.
Right, right. I
You know-
think we can do
I
this.
think everything else
Well,
is fast. right?
Okay.
All right, so let's-
So
Looks
we're
like
at
the new-
9:01. Let's say we can go till 9:30 on this and then I think we can complete the rest of it unless, Steve, do you have something, we have 10 minutes for you on the town administrator's
I don't
report. Is
think I
that
need
okay?
10 minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
So if you have the paper in front of you, that we've circulated before, and it might actually be in the packet again.
It's in the
Yeah,
packet.
Great, okay. So we had 5 general categories: financial sustainability, environmental sustainability, citizen engagement, quality of education, and town staff alignment. And we had the broad goals, those broad goals, in some cases, we had language, and then we had some specific short-term goals for the coming year. So let's start with financial sustainability.
I don't think we did it.
We did.
We,
No.
the thing is, I think, and this brings me to some part of the point. This is our goal, but we are not really equipped to do a lot of this. A lot of this needs to be done by somebody else. Either we need to hire a consultant or there has to be some staff that buys into this. And we were frankly in a state of flux last year, especially with staff. And I don't think the staff was had bought in to this, and a lot of the stuff we can start with the financial
I think that we've
sustainability,
only-
but when I read through it, looking at it, I said, nope, didn't do that, didn't do that, didn't do that, didn't do that.
I
None
don't
of
think
it
we
got
did any
done.
of them, and I think where it fell apart is these goals are supposed to kind of set the goals for the town. I think we often look at this as what we're personally going to do as a board, and what That's not our goal.
It is
That's
not
not
a-
our role. Our role is not to do the day-to-day work of town management. And I think we get way too involved in it. I think, when we're setting our goals, we're setting the goals for the town and kind of the tools that we want and things like that. And then it would go, if, Steve was a town administrator, he would build his goals around that. And then all the staff would build
Yeah.
their goals around.
I mean,
those
Right.
things.
a lot of times, when you set a goal, you also set who the responsible party
Right,
is to
and-
Mhm.
implement.
That's-
And in my mind, and all my years, usually I use these goals, or the board use these goals to evaluate my performance. Okay,
Right.
so you have some way to measure the administrator's performance by how well these goals are hit, but when I look at these, I'm trying to figure out what are the expectations? Who's expected to carry these goals out? And I just don't see it here.
No, that's right.
So we have a chance for a fresh start.
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm excited about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Indeed. And we, did so much work last spring, if you all recall, on trying to set up sort of a new evaluation process and going through some training with the staff about setting goals, but it didn't get pulled together and actually.
What was the date of these goals? Because I think shortly after we did these goals,
It was last summer.
Tim said, I'm
No,
giving.
I mean, I don't want to put it on his show. I think Nathan has it exactly right. And it's like what we talked about at the at the end of our interview session, when we were thinking about the kind of leader we wanted. I mean, this was exactly right.
Yeah.
We need somebody who is going to say, yes, I want to be part of that. And I assume we can get Ryan to this end of July session.
And-
He had said he would be there.
He said that he wanted to be.
Right, I bet I would,
Good,
yes.
good,
And,
then-
and I mean, this can be a springboard. That's why I asked you about the mea culpa is, okay, so we suck. Okay, we got that.
Yep.
So
I-
now moving forward, we can use these as a groundwork for thinking about what realistically goals we want. And I think exactly what you said, Steve.
Yeah.
Ones where we expect the lifting to be done by the daytime government with our guidance.
And I think the other thing that generally has worked well is some of the boards I've worked in the past, that we have a quarterly update by the town manager administrator as to where we're at with the goals. So there's we don't get to the end of the year and say, geez, what happened,
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Right.
And
You
we-
will be at the goal setting processes, right? Will you be there? I mean, for the July one?
No, it would be great. I mean, it'd be great to have
I
both
think
of
it
you
would be
guys.
great.
Saddle
No,
him.
really.
I'm afraid
I'm
you'll
still on the
st-
payroll as far
You're
as I know.
still on the payroll, Steve.
Even if you're not there as the town administrator, your experience in town setting goals, I think would be great. if we
Yes,
could have that.
absolutely,
It's such a
absolutely.
Wonderful
Yeah.
opportunity for us.
Yeah.
I'll be there.
Thank you.
Great. Good.
Did you, by the way, and this is not, I think this is fine to ask. Did you have any conversation with Ryan as to the notice period he needs to give?
6 weeks,
6 weeks.
and he's already given it.
With a break between.
Yeah.
Taking some time.
Um,
The rest of my summer.
The other thing we also have to keep in mind is that now we have a master plan that we didn't have last year. And so
We should, yeah.
right,
good
that's a
point. We should
big
use that.
piece of what we want to be looking at and figuring out priorities and, yeah. That would-
Okay.
should feed into those goals. So
All right,
I,
well,
I do
we
just want,
reviewed
so
our
we don't,
last year's goals.
well,
He
let me
already
just
gave
say
us
under,
this thing.
yeah, under environmental sustainability, though, I want us to, recognize that we did do some things, which is like getting the EV chargers going, getting the solar up and
Right,
running
and
at the
we
school.
are interviewing
That's
for a
huge.
sustainability director
And we,
right now.
right, and we also had the whole transfer station task force did their work, and they're moving ahead to reduce our environmental impact at the transfer station. So we did accomplish some things under environmental sustainability. I wrote a few notes here. Oh, and then under the citizen engagement, I do want to just, compliment us that we started a process, I think it was started last summer, where we identified the various boards and committees, and, we've been trying to rotate people through coming to talk to the select board, and we haven't reached all of them, but I think I don't have the list in front of me, but we did have we made good progress in that goal of where we said we'd meet at least once a year.
And Nathan and I will do the committee
Yeah,
charter and
which
team
would be great,
reviews.
which would be great.
So
And
if we get that done before the 30th, Nathan, we will have.
right, right.
30th 's the
And
latest.
I just say under the education,
happening.
under the education goal, I think that there was also very good cooperation between the school
Yes.
and the town throughout COVID, which I think also
There
helps
was.
then create a good relationship in terms of trying to discuss the shared custodial work and work more closely around facilities, all of which I think is moving us in a good direction in terms
And
of.
we had a very successful negotiation with the
with the
teachers and
Right.
this board was involved in that.
Right, right. So, and under the town staff alignment, I think we already addressed that, which we made some progress on creating a process, but implementing it didn't happen.
Okay.
That's my 2 cents
I
worth
w-
on our evaluation of our 2022 goals.
And I would ask Barney then of you, and taking David's point, because he's always talking about process. So, and I agree. What is our process then for these goals going forward? Are we going to, wait till the new town administrator comes on, and then we'll have a discussion? I mean, how do you envision this playing out?
Well,
From a
this is
process
my
and what-
thinking, and then obviously we should all chime in and have something that we all think makes sense, but because Ryan we've chosen him, and I think we're going to have a successful contract negotiation with him. And he wants to be there for our goal setting. If we want to go ahead with that July 28th meeting as a goal setting session, which is that would be one, that could be the first step. And if we want to do that, then we may want to have maybe 2 of us sort of be the little subgroup that sort of plans that further. How is that going to work? Do we want to get anybody from the outside to come in and help us with that conversation? Is it more, it's going to be a discussion, an open discussion, but we're not going to try to reach any decisions, and we'll get a sort of a draft out of that, or at least some sense of where we want to go, and then revisit that in August, or potentially not until the beginning of September, depending on everybody's schedule and when we get the town administrator actually on the payroll. But that's what we've talked about so far. Comments? Suggestions, reactions?
When's our first meeting to talk about these goals then? The 28th?
The 28th.
July 28th.
Yeah.
And the town administrator, Brian, will be there.
Yep.
Great.
And
So,
Steve Ledoux.
And Steve.
I mean,
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
the idea behind the summer goal setting is because summer's quieter and it's a break point between the 2 years, right? And the discipline, I think, on the 28th is around making sure we just focus on that for the meeting and spend the 3 hours or however long we need. We have dinner, whatever, just make it more relaxed and very, very, well, relaxed and focused. They're 2 different things, but focused and not stressful, let's say. Try to,
Right.
just really think strategically. So then where we've fallen down, I think everybody's kind of on the same page. We've talked in big picture. I don't personally believe we need a facilitator. I think we have a good understanding of what's in front of us. We have a good start here. We have a master plan. We can all do homework and refine our own vision of what is important for us, what's important for the town. And of those, what are the things we can have an impact on? And then I think, yes, because Ryan will be a proactive participant. And he's already come out with, his view of what to do. We should we should be able, I mean, I don't want to pre-design the thing, but given we've had a head start on goals and we didn't do a good job on goals we already agreed on, so presumably a lot of those goals will reappear in some form because we put them down because we thought they were important. We just didn't do much on them. We could be more tactical at that point.
Yeah.
And start framing out, maybe to Nathan's point, what is strategic for us to do as the board of directors of the town? And what is tactical for Ryan and his team to take on? And, you know, eventually, and that's definitely not that meeting, begin to work at resource gap, which he will do, right? Like, okay, you wanted me to do this. Here's what I got, you know, here's what I need. I mean, I think just starting that and getting a head start on it, it's not gonna be overnight, right? But I think it'll be fine.
But I think also to facilitate, if everybody brings, 5 or 10 overarching
Yeah.
goals to the table, whatever, 5, whatever, 1, 2, as long as people, kind of think about it before
Right.
they get here and bring some,
Yeah,
some
which is
ideas.
what we
that-
did,
Yeah,
but
okay.
Now, as Barney pointed out, we have a master plan. We got
Right.
even more documents.
So you got to, you got to
We
review
got a
that.
vote from, it's difficult to get even in a democracy because of the way master plan did its many surveys. We have data. I don't think, right? That's pretty good.
Thoughts, Nathan or Travis?
This is great.
So it sounds like we're agreed on, we are going to we're going to set aside that meeting. It's not, sorry, I keep saying 28th, it's the 26th of July.
Yeah.
Which is our regular fourth Tuesday of the month.
So
Um,
just because of this conversation, there is a committee missing on our liaison things under the new committees because we don't have a master plan implementation committee
right.
on there.
Yeah,
I
so
don't know
we-
what happened to that.
had
so
it,
we
but
need-
it dropped off.
It dropped off somehow. So we need to remember to put that, Nathan, you and I,
Mhm.
okay?
Well, again, just let me mention though that we've said we want to have a meeting with the governance task force because one of the questions is, I'm sorry, not the governance task force. Sorry, the master plan steering committee. One of the questions is, do you want to have a separate implementation committee? Or do you want to have more, I don't know if you want to call it, a manager group, but that the various boards and committees that have that have something in the master plan being suggested that would naturally fall to their responsibility, have them identify what they could take on this year, this next fiscal year out of the master plan. And so it's, instead of having it, and the reason this has been raised is that the worry is that if you create a new committee, that the various boards and committees and even staff members for that matter won't feel as responsible for the implementation, selecting parts of the master plan that they think they can carry
Yeah,
forward.
well,
So-
that's another discussion, but the thing is that we're still going to need
We want to
something
have
around
some
that.
way to
And
follow up
maybe you
on
do
the
it,
master plan.
like the
Right.
CPC where everybody sends,
Mhm.
those affected places send a representative so that they all know what, anyway, okay.
All right. Well, that was great, brief and to the point.
right.
So Steve, let's go
Okay.
over to you for the town administrator's
Okay,
report.
well, Timbernook kept their word and vacated the property as of June 15th. The only thing left are a couple like little logs that are terrific because I like to go there at noon and sit on these logs and look at the pond and meditate for a little bit. So I'm glad they left them there. We did we did interviews on the 24th for the shared sustainability director with Westford, and participating was the town manager, assistant town manager of Westford, a woman from their kind of green community, Bob Zog, and myself. We interviewed 2 candidates. both very qualified, approach things differently. Westford HR is now doing background checks on them. We may have a follow-up meeting this week. It's not determined yet to vote on one of the folks, and then we'd be bringing the appointment back to the board maybe on the 12th, and we'll make sure that the candidate is available, and hopefully we can resolve that, or or maybe decide to go out for re-advertisement. It's too early to tell. There are a lot of vacancies right now, and Bedford is recruiting a sustainability director. I just learned that Concord sustainability director is leaving, so it is getting to be kind of an open market. So hopefully we can find somebody relatively quickly. Nathan, I'm going to save the Comcast for you since I stole your thunder last time. And I did have a session with the president of the police union on the 23rd. I think we're extremely close. I think we really are there, but I would have brought it tonight, except I thought we had too many things for executive session. So we'll talk about it on the 12th. Also, we do have a request for a hearing to appeal a discipline order by the police chief on one of the officers. We have to act within 20 days of receiving that. So I hate to do it on the 12th, but we may have to, Barney and David and I think we need to talk about some timing on some of these issues on the 12th as
That
well.
would be part of our public meeting, correct?
I believe that'd be executive session.
It would be, I think.
Right,
I
I
thought you
mean-
said he requested to do it in public, no?
No, I mean,
Okay.
under the open
can.
meeting law, you can do disciplinary actions in executive session unless the party has a right to be there and the party has a right to ask for an open session. As
Oh,
far as
okay.
I'm known, I don't think so. I
Okay,
don't think so.
okay.
We did receive a reimbursement for $94,000 from the small bridge program for the Curve Street and Maple Street Bridge designs. And we just put out an RFP to upgrade the cable equipment in this room. The RFPs are due July 15th. We're estimating a cost of $33,000. I think we'll be funding it through the PEG access account, which has some $77,000 in it at the moment. And that's it.
I'm gonna jump into the Comcast.
Yeah.
So, see, we've met a few times. Okay,
Right.
We met,
We could go or we're gonna
who
have
wants
to
to hear me? We met last week with Comcast. And so I guess a couple things they did agree, and we've already done the paperwork to extend the process again, which was very good news. So I guess we've met twice since the last time, right? And in the meeting before last, we stressed very strongly our need and desire to have a list of the locations that they covered. What they did was they just gave us a map that gives us all the locations in the town, and including those that are not covered. So we will be able to use that to identify where we need better coverage. I don't want to go into right now what that is because we're in the middle of negotiations. But we have this information and they are working to see what it would be to add additional locations. We have no idea. It was clear that they were saying we would be paying for it. We are not done with the negotiations at this point. What I'll say is that we have been very, very clear that getting better coverage is a big process, a big concern of ours. There's a lot of other concerns that are out there as well. We're really very much still at the beginning of this process. I would say, though, we did pass a major hurdle, which was, the inability for us to get from them who they served. I think if we, I'm assuming that we can trust the map. And I think that now that we have this information, we can actually start moving forward much more quickly with them. We pre-scheduled every 2 weeks.
every 2 weeks.
We have pre-scheduled a meeting with them so that we can make sure that we move quickly on the process.
Good.
That's it.
Are there any liaison reports you would like to make tonight? All right. We do have some appointments in our packet. We can go to those.
I move to appoint William Tice, 38 Audubon Lane, to serve on the Board of Registrars.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No pot.
Passes
I'd like to
unanimously.
move that we accept John Bones' resignation from the Board of Registrars and thank him for his service, and it's effective immediately.
I have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'd like to move, what's the word? I'd like to move that we accept Kate Reed's letter of resignation from the Community Preservation Committee effective June 30th, 2022, and thank her for her long service on that committee.
You are so welcome.
Second.
I'm
Any-
so glad to be off of it. We had our meeting, what was it, last
Last night.
night? Oh, my God.
Right.
Yeah, so
All
it
right.
was a good meeting, I have to say.
Any discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. The motion carries unanimously.
I was joking, I'm sorry. I said an aye, but then I would be opposed to that.
Certainly not Kate.
No, I, you can,
All right. And that's it on the appointments, correct?
yes.
Okay. Why don't we look at the warrants are there just for your information. We don't need to vote on those. And I will point out that somehow or other, one of the four, I did not get my signature on, but I'm stopping in tomorrow to sign it with Kelly. Apologies for that.
I move that the select board vote to transfer land in the public burial ground at Green Cemetery described as follows. Deed 776, lot D 170, grave 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 to Esther Krapp, 826 West Street. Deed 788, lot D 400, graves 1 and 2 to Larry Bearfield and Robin Emerson at 1127 North Road. And deed 789, lot D 169, graves 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 to DeGregory Southall, former resident of Carlisle at 225 River Road.
Second.
Any discussion?
I just have a question. What is, because I'm not familiar, is there any criteria for this? Like, you used to be a resident at one point? Is that a criteria?
Resident or a pastor.
You have to meet with
And it-
Gary and pick your plot. and
Yeah.
Pay the fees, but yeah.
Was there a
All
second?
right, we put the motion on the floor, correct? And
Yes,
did
I
we have a
did. I'm on-
second? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right,
I'm going to be
motion carries.
circulating the deeds. for
unanimously.
signature.
And They've
Yeah.
been corrected because
Um,
the ones that are packets.
I realize what we failed to do with your TA report, Steve, is we didn't look at the July 12 agenda.
Oh, okay. sorry
So
about
let's take a quick look at that. Just to make sure
that.
and see, I don't know if anybody has something they want to,
I just want to point out that the 705, the HRS is tentative at this moment. I haven't gotten the final report from HRS on the compensation study. But I know she is available that night. She probably will be Zooming, I assume.
great. And that is, I'm just. trying to
And
find
the
that.
855 is kind of we kind of talked about this a little bit late earlier, that any end of year transfers, the board has to approve before it goes to finance committee, which is meeting the next night. Because the books close July 15th.
So we have and we have the, I'll check, we'll need to check with Sylvia about Conscom, but she had asked to do a Greeno Barn update with us. We'll have to see if she's ready for that. She had indicated she would be, but yeah, and the Town Governance Task Force really wanted to meet with the select board to discuss their their task going forward into our special town meeting. And a continuation of the regionalization discussion. And then Kate has some agenda time for the Carlisle Housing Production Plan. And then we will have, as we've mentioned, we will have an executive session. And also our hope would be that we are approving, we'll do the police union contract hopefully, and then hopefully we're approving contract for the town administrator. And then we decided and we want to add back in, I think, the police officer appointment.
Oh, that's right.
And then we'll also have to add in the appointments, the committee and
Committee.
appointments. Yeah. So this is going to be a packed night, but we'll make it work. Okay.
I have a quick question. I missed a meeting where we were talking with the auditors and kind of going with that review.
Oh,
How did that go?
Well, we've got a whole bunch of notes. I'm happy to share
I
them.
just want to make sure, because really one of the things I wanted to make sure was on the IT controls, I think.
Yeah.
um,
We wanted to correct some things. I think, did you submit those?
I did, but also I just want to make sure, like, so I did the SOC 1 and SOC 2. I did the SOC 1 and SOC 2 reviews. I just want to make sure that those got filed somewhere so that when I sent them to Kelly, they should be filed somewhere, and my email should be filed somewhere so that when they come back again, we can show, yes, they were reviewed. So what that review process means for everybody is the SOC 2 and SOC 1 and SOC 2 are reviewed by an external auditor of the controls, and yet they put in any findings, and then management needs to respond on those findings. And then what I did is I read the whole thing and then looked at the management's response to the findings. And then, I just chime in on whether or not I think that the management response was okay. This time they did have managed response on everything. 3 years ago when I did this, they had no responses on anything. So I couldn't actually do a good finding on it. And I think that might have bitten us, but as long as we're tracking that, I'm happy to do again next year.
Yeah, Kelly's on top of it. for
Okay.
sure.
But
Excellent.
David, all of your questions were answered.
I don't know about that, but I think I would say financially, we're fine. Our balance sheet looks good. A lot of my questions were learning the nomenclature about public finance, but the two areas of concern have to do with controls, right? One was IT, which you just identified, and the other is financial. And I think I'll defer to our new TA to help us work through that. But there's clearly a need for more procedure, more documentation. I don't think there's a question that we don't do things well. We seem to do things pretty well, but documentation is not our strong suit. Let's put it that way. Room for improvement for next year.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I think unless someone else has something they want to raise, that we are prepared to take a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Look at that. Ending at 9:32.
Yeah.